I really want to say good morning, everyone, even though it's 2 o'clock. To me, it feels like morning. The caffeine is just now hitting. I've had some extra strong espresso with some pumpkin cold brew. I took the espresso shot and put it in the pumpkin cold brew, so I'm ready to go. Let me adjust this mic a little bit. The volume levels looking good. All right, so we're going to start today off with hitting record. All right, so we're going to start today off with JD Vance talking about border security. Later in the day, Trump is also going to be speaking in Arizona. JD Vance is in Georgia right now, and they're both talking about border security. They're going to double down on Comrade Kamala being the border czar and how she's done a terrible job, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, JD Vance is coming out right now. So let's hear what he has to say. Oh, come on. I muted a little bit because of the music. Wait, there we go. Okay, here he goes.
Well, let's let our sheriffs get up here. I'm proud to be flanked by a number of great law enforcement leaders in the state of Georgia because we're here today to celebrate law enforcement and to celebrate a president who has stood with law enforcement, and that's Donald J. Trump.
All righty then. Let's do it.
Now, we ought to remember here that we have the best country in the world. We got the best workers in the world. We've got the best people in the world. We've got the most beautiful and most abundant natural resources in the world. But the one thing that we have got to do to fix this country is fix the leadership. Because as much as we've got incredible blessing and incredible bounty, we have got a screwed up vice president calling the shots. And I think it's time to fire Kamala Harris, not to give her a promotion. Now, I don't know if you saw yesterday, but her VP nominee, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, gave a little speech at the Democratic National Convention. I will say I appreciate the Democrats not being able to keep anything on time because I think by the time that he spoke, everybody in the state of Georgia was already in.
What's going on? Did you stream the DNC last night? No, I did not get a chance. I wanted to, but unfortunately I had some things come up that I wasn't able to. I did see Bill Clinton, though. I watched a little bit of it, and it was pretty underwhelming anyway. So you didn't really miss much, so it's all good.
In bed. And if you weren't asleep at the beginning of the speech, you were sure as hell asleep by the end of the speech. Ain't that right?
They had Keenan. I get the two confused. Either Keenan or Kel. I think it's Keenan. Keenan Thompson came out and delivered the most cringy Project 2025 like SNL kind of skit, and it was just so bad. The first person they tried to like bring up on the teleprompter on the back, the mic didn't even work. It was just, oh man. So if you've watched SNL like during Trump's presidency, it was pretty much that. And it seemed like SNL was getting good again. Like they were being objective, it was, political comedy. SNL has always had political comedy, but they were just making fun of Trump and Republicans for a long time, and it got cringy. So they were coming back. SNL was starting to get good again. It was actually kind of funny. And then you see him come out and do that at the DNC, and it just brings back all those bad memories of the cringy comedy. It was just so terrible.
But look, it's interesting that they are trying to pretend to be tough on crime people. Kamala Harris says that she's now tough on crime. She's got religion. She found Jesus about being tough on crime, and she found it about a month ago when Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race. Because the record of Kamala Harris and the record of her running mate is doing everything they can to make the lives of our law enforcement harder, to make it harder for them to keep our communities safe. Kamala Harris was the prosecutor in San Francisco, California. And if you think San Francisco, California has been well run from a tough on crime perspective, then I've got another thing to tell you. One of the most, by the way, a beautiful city, San Francisco, California, has been destroyed by the leadership of people like Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris wants to take San Francisco liberalism nationwide, and I think we are not going to let her. Georgia is not going to let her, and it starts right here in Valdosta.
I turn my AC on. It's getting hot in here.
Now let's just run through the contrast a little bit, the difference between Kamala Harris's record on law enforcement and Donald Trump's record. Now, Kamala Harris, she wanted to make sex crimes with minors a nonviolent offense, which means more of these sickos out on the streets of our country.
Saying that. I don't. Is that true? We got to fact check that, because I tried fact checking that like 2 days ago when he gave a speech, and I couldn't find it.
Absolutely not. Kamala Harris wanted to defund the police. She said it on video. Do we want to defund the police? Kamala Harris wants to make it easier for soft-on-crime prosecutors to go after our law enforcement. Do we want that? So do we want Kamala Harris as the prosecutor-in-chief of this country? No, we want Donald J. Trump, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Now, as Kamala Harris was doing all those things, let's remember the record of Donald J. Trump. When Kenosha, Wisconsin, which I was at just a few days ago, Kenosha, Wisconsin was about to burn in a terrible riot. Donald Trump called the governor and affirmatively offered the help of federal officials to stop those riots and to save the city of Kenosha. Donald Trump believes that we ought to properly fund our law enforcement and make sure our police get the pay and the equipment that they need. Donald Trump believes that we ought to stop these soft-on-crime prosecutors. If the police bring in a bad guy, the prosecutors ought to throw him behind bars and keep him there. And most importantly, Donald Trump believes that we ought to make our law enforcement lives easier by closing down that southern border and getting...
I know there was a bill for a 10-year age difference consent law. Yeah, but that's not even what he's saying. He's pretty much saying, like, minors, like, people are, like, doing the thing, I'm not going to say the word, obviously, to minors, and they were letting them out of jail.
The drug cartels out of our communities. Now, I have to say that Kamala Harris, given that she's so into soft-on-crime policy, she did select a good running mate in Tim Walz. They make quite a dynamic duo. If you remember the riots of summer of 2020 when $13 billion of damage was done to the city of Minneapolis, Tim Walz was the governor of Minnesota, and Tim Walz did everything he could to let those rioters burn down the biggest city in his state. And then Kamala Harris did everything she could to bail out the rioters out of prison, right? What a dynamic duo they make. A dynamic duo for people who don't like law enforcement, a dynamic duo for people who want to make our streets less safe. I happen to believe in a very common sense principle that we're going to back the blue and bring public safety back to Georgia and back to our country. Now, Tim Walz, I will say, I've been beating up on Tim Walz a little bit. You may have seen this, but, you know, Tim Walz loves to go around and say that he carried a weapon in war. That's what Tim Walz says. And, of course, all of the veterans out there will know that Tim Walz never carried a weapon in war. The closest he went to a war zone was Italy, which last time I checked was not a war zone. But in Tim Walz's defense, he did let those rioters burn down Minneapolis, so maybe we...
So the closest thing that I can find to what he's saying is a post from the New York Post, and it says Kamala Harris bail fund endorsement helped put killer rapists back on the streets to offend again in the name of social justice.
We should give Tim Walz a little bit of credit. Maybe the combat zone he visited was Minneapolis when he was the governor of Minnesota. But let's hear now from a great leader.
It says Kamala Harris helped a controversial bail fund rake in millions of dollars, which it spent on getting violent criminals back on the streets in the name of social justice, only for some of them to commit more crimes, including murder. Among the freed criminals, a twice-convicted male sex offender who went on to allegedly assault other women before his rearrest, and a man who left a victim with a traumatic brain injury after being sprung from jail while awaiting trial for another felony assault. So yeah, that's probably what he's referencing there, is her being soft on crime, letting these offenders out of jail early. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what he's getting at.
in Georgia law enforcement, and I just want to make sure I get Ashley's name right here, but we have a great sheriff in Ashley Polk who has made this community safer. Thank you. And I know he already offered a few words, but Sheriff, if you would, come up and just say a few more words about why we got to back law enforcement. Here's Sheriff Ashley Polk. Give him a round of applause.
We did it. We found the information. All right, here's the sheriff.
Kind of a tough job to follow a real Marine that went to a real war with a real gun. I mean, tough act to follow. As I said earlier, I said you couldn't find a better pair than we've got to save this country. They're very much pro law enforcement, and y'all know how I feel about that. Because we're there to work together with them. But we have got to get out and get these people elected because it's the most important election I've ever been in my life. It's not even me on the ballot, but I want to. By the way, I did not recognize the person that can really get elected. Where's my wife of 57 years? That's who's always got me elected. Ginger, thank you for all you do. And you will be working for the party.
All right, dude. Sounds great.
Let's us all get together and get out and work and carry your neighbors to the polls, and because this is the last chance to save America we'll ever have. If we don't do it this time, we're going to lose it. Thank y'all.
Well, thank you so much, Sheriff, and thanks to your lovely wife for doing what you do. And look, it's very simple here. We have an ability to make this country much safer than it is today. We just need better leadership. We need better leadership at the federal level, and
this is a good old Southern boy right there. Yep, you know it.
particular because it's the federal government that opened up the southern border and let all these drug cartels bring the drug and crime into our communities. And we're here, of course, not far from where Laken Riley was born and raised. A beautiful, beautiful young girl who would still be alive today if Kamala Harris had done her job and not let these drug cartels come into our community.
I'm going to see if I can get some more fact checks in.
And I know President Trump is proud to have been endorsed by local law enforcement here in Georgia, but we also got some good endorsements in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Law enforcement knows that Donald J. Trump is the law and order candidate in this election, and you all have an incredible power to get out the vote, to drive people to the polls and make sure he actually becomes the next president of the United States. So thank you all for everything that you're doing.
Ooh.
Now, I want to take a few questions from the media, but
Hell
before
yeah.
I take some questions from the press, I want to get a little bit personal here because the sheriffs here did something for me that I've actually never seen. They took me in to the investigation room and showed me some of the stuff that they have interdicted over the last few months just here in this community. What Valdosta is what, 50,000 people? Small town Georgia, you would not think is so close to the poison that the drug cartels are bringing into this country, but every town is a border town and every state is a border state because of the policies of Kamala Harris. Now, you've got sheriffs behind me who are doing everything they can.
Do you think RFK will back Trump tomorrow? Yeah, dude, he's going to drop out pretty soon, and he's definitely going to back Trump. I heard something about Trump maybe giving him a position on the cabinet, or at least some position in government for him. So, yeah, I see that happening for sure. He knows he's not going to win as a third party, and the DNC, everything there absolutely is already turned on him. They're talking a bunch of shit. So, yeah, look for him to endorse Trump if he hasn't already.
And to keep our communities safer, but they need a federal government that makes their job easier.
Thanks for that
and
like.
not harder. And I got to tell you, I've got 3 little kids. I've got a 7-year-old boy, a 4-year-old boy, and a 2-year-old girl. And what they showed me were boxes of candy that looked like Nerds, looked like Sour Patch Kids, looked like Snickers bars, and they're boxes of candy that are actually dangerous drugs. And why did the drug cartels manufacture them like that? Because they wanted to hide them from law enforcement.
Well, yeah.
And we know what's going to happen is if a pack of that candy finds its way into our communities or into our playgrounds, some kid, through no fault of their own, is going to pick up a piece of candy and it is going to take their lives from them. And I don't want that to be my child, and I don't want it to be your child either. And that's why we have to fight to change leadership in this election. Think about how sick you would have to be to manufacture drugs that look like children's candy, and think about how sick Kamala Harris has to be to let those people do business in our country instead of throwing them the hell out of our country, which is exactly what we should be doing.
No doubt these are terrible people. So for the DNC last night, I got to watch a little bit of it, but what we were talking about yesterday, there was supposed to be major riots. That's what that journalist said. I didn't see anything about any crazy riots going on. It was mostly from the previous day. So did anyone see anything happen? Was there any escalation of the riots at the DNC outside?
This is a disgrace, ladies and gentlemen. This is a disgrace born of our own failed leadership, and we can do so much better. You know, one of my favorite speeches at the RNC convention, well, my most favorite speech was my wife's speech. I thought she did a hell of a job. But thank you.
Trump should do RFK, Tulsi, Vivek, and Elon as cabinet members. That'd be hilarious. I'm a big fan of Vivek. And obviously I like Tulsi too, but Vivek is pretty good.
But beyond my wife's, one of my most favorite speeches, and it was a sad speech. She had a beautiful young mother talking about her handsome young kid, and he was maybe 14 years old. And this kid lost his life because he took something that he shouldn't have taken, but it was laced with fentanyl.
That's sad.
And I remember watching this mom speak, and I remember thinking to myself that don't we want our kids to grow up in communities where they can make the mistakes that all kids make, and they can learn from it rather than have it become a death sentence? Because we all know, we either have kids, all of us were kids at one point in our life. We all know that kids are going to get into stuff that parents and grandparents don't want them to get into. That's just a part of growing up in this country. But when I grew up, even though I grew up in a poor family, though I grew up in a neighborhood that wasn't always easy, I knew that if I made a mistake, the people
Fuck with the video. Come on, dude.
It wouldn't take my life. And that's what the policies of Kamala Harris have taken from our children and taken from our neighborhoods. We have got to get back to the kind of country where kids can make childhood mistakes, and the Mexican drug cartels are not going to be there to take advantage of them. And I think that's what this election is ultimately about. We know that kids aren't always going to be perfect, but let's build the kind of Georgia. Let's build the kind of country where our kids can learn and grow. We're going to do it together, but only if you get us across the finish line in Georgia. This is one of the most important states in the union. It always has been, but especially in this election of 2024. So my request is very simple. Do everything you can. Get your friends and family and your neighbors to the polls. Remind that person who sometimes votes but sometimes doesn't that it's their time to get to the polls in 2024 and vote for Donald Trump. If you got a little extra time, thank you.
You gotta vote. Bring on the voting.
If you got a little time, go down to the GOP headquarters, knock on some doors, make some phone calls. The people who determine whether Donald J. Trump becomes the next president, it's not the media, it's not the dishonest leadership of the Democratic Party, it is us. Donald Trump is the people's president, but only if we do the work to make it so. God bless you guys. Let's get to work. We got 75 days to make Donald J. Trump the next president, and we're going to do it together. God bless you all.
That was a quick one. Oh, but he's supposed to take questions. He said he was going to take questions. Do it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Now, let's take some questions
there he
from the
goes.
media.
He wants your kids to experiment with drugs. Just don't die on the first try. Exactly.
Here's what I'd ask. First of all, if it's a fake news anchor, I'd appreciate y'all just letting them
That finger gun probably just got me demonetized.
ask their
Knowing
question.
YouTube.
It's okay. we can run them out of town after they ask their question. I'm kidding. But what I'd ask, first of all, is we start with local Georgia reporters because we want to make sure that the local reporters get an opportunity to ask some questions. We'll take a few from local reporters, and then we'll take a few from the national press pool, and then we'll go from there. So where we got local Georgia...
I like that he does that. He takes questions from the local reporters first, and then it goes to the mainstream media. I dig that. That's a good idea.
Georgia reporter, throw your hand in the air, and I'll call on you.
What I don't dig is they don't mic them up.
Yes, sir.
Idiots.
The question was, what are some policies that are going to affect rural America and certainly rural South Georgia? And I think, look, the first and most important thing is rural America has been affected by this terrible poison the drug cartels are bringing in as much as anybody. we have got to close down the border and stop the cartels from bringing this poison into our communities.
Yeah.
We've got to re-implement basic law and order and public safety policies because, look, I believe whether you live in a big city or a small rural area, whether you're black or white, rich or poor, public safety is the birthright of every American citizen. And if we do that, rural America is going to benefit more than anybody else. And the final point that I'll make is, look, we know that our rural areas, our schools are overstressed and sometimes underfunded. Our local hospitals don't have enough resources. We've seen massive closures in rural hospitals over the past few years in this country. What makes rural hospitals not financially viable? It's when you bring in millions of illegal aliens into your country and you give them free health care paid for by American taxpayers. I want American citizens
Go
to
figure.
benefit from our great health care system, and I want American...
We were so concerned during COVID that these hospitals were being completely packed and full and there's not enough beds, but yet we're going to import a bunch of immigrants that are also going to fill up our hospitals.
taxpayers to
Logic.
support their fellow countrymen, not people who don't deserve to be here in the first place. Ma'am. Thank you.
Thanks for that like, too.
I can hear you.
I just saw it. I never pictured that rural schools are overcrowded. Yeah, it's just that they don't have the capacity for people coming in.
Yeah, ma'am, I appreciate that question. And for those of you who couldn't heard it, how do we respond to Democrats who say that they tried to pass a border security bill? My response, ma'am,
Great
is
question.
I was there in the Senate when they tried to pass that border security bill, and it had nothing to do with border security. It had to do with codifying a lot of the executive orders of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden that actually further opened the southern border. For example, the policy of catch and release. This is where a person comes into our country, they claim asylum, and then they're released into our country with no follow-up. Sometimes they don't come back for 5 years, sometimes they don't come back for 10 years. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden implemented catch and release through executive order. Their so-called border security package would have made catch and release the law of the land. So even if you have a guy like Donald Trump come in, he can't undo it because Congress has codified one of the worst open border policies in America. Everybody knows, everybody with an ounce of common sense knows, when Kamala Harris became president, she said she wanted to, vice president, she said, I want to suspend deportations, and she did. I want to stop Donald Trump's Remain in Mexico policy, and she did. The reason why we have an open border is because Kamala Harris undid the policies of Donald J. Trump. We bring Donald J. Trump back, we bring those policies back, we will get border security, but you've got to have a president who wants to do this stuff.
It's about time they actually responded to that because they've been running with that. The Democrats have been running with that. Trump's fault. He wouldn't sign this bill for the longest time, and they haven't responded. Got another like. Hell yeah.
Georgia? Yes, sir. Please ask.
Up to
ask the
3.
question.
I can't hear him.
I don't think the microphone's on. It's okay.
Yeah.
Just talk loud. That's a Chinese-made microphone, actually. This is an American-made microphone.
Got him. It's a long question. Now I can't hear anything.
Well, first of all, why South Georgia? Because we love South Georgia. We got to do well in South Georgia. So we want the people here to feel a little bit of love and make sure that we're thinking about them because we're not going to win without them, right?
Right.
But I do think what is unique about South Georgia and the effect of the policies of Kamala Harris is the wide open southern border, because you have that intersection of I-10 and I-75 here, very close by. It creates a lot of space for the drug traffickers and for the sex traffickers and the human traffickers. I mean, you have crime happening in this beautiful small town that would have never happened if Kamala Harris had actually done her job. And so I think that it's important to remind people that the wide open southern border has had a very direct consequences, even as far away from Texas as South Georgia. And I think it's important to remind people of that and to make the point that if we get the leadership of Donald J. Trump back, we're going to have a secure southern border. We're not going to have drugs in our kids' playgrounds that look like children's candy. We're going to have real law and order, but we've got to get better leadership in order to get it. Yes, sir.
Woo.
Yes, sir, in the hat, all the way in the back.
In the hat. Let's go.
What are your
I guess the co-pilot, he's back.
veterans and
Right.
for veterans?
I don't know how
Yes,
to-
sir.
right
I
here.
appreciate you
Co-pilot.
asking that. And you know, one of the most important, how many veterans do we have here? Let's thank the veterans for their service. Thank you all for being here. I know we got a lot of veterans.
That's us, veterans.
God bless you all. You know, one of the great policy achievements of the Trump administration that people don't talk enough about, but our veterans know exactly what I'm talking about, is that he promoted choice in the VA healthcare system. One of the main ways, when I got out of the Marine Corps, the main way that I had healthcare, because I couldn't afford it otherwise, was through the VA healthcare system. You've got great people working at the VA.
That's me. I got an appointment tomorrow.
Today, but sometimes, especially in our rural
Can't afford shit.
areas, you've got a lot of veterans who are sitting on the phone for 3 hours trying to get an appointment who can't get an appointment. Donald Trump changed that more than any president of my lifetime. He gave veterans choice in the healthcare system, and that was a huge achievement and something the media doesn't talk enough about. The other thing Donald Trump did is again, you've got 95% of the people in the VA who are great patriots who are doing a great job, and I think my veterans here would back me up on that. But like every bunch, you've got a few bad apples, and you've got to be able to fire the bad apples to allow the good apples to do their job.
Yeah.
And what Donald Trump did is engage in some real bureaucracy reform that made it possible for us to fire the small number of bad VA employees so that the good VA employees could be empowered to take care of our veterans. That's exactly how it should work, and Donald Trump deserves a lot of credit for that. We're going to go back to that, because I will say, did a veterans event in Pennsylvania just a couple of days ago, and the biggest complaint I heard from those veterans was that under Kamala Harris's policies, a lot of that pro-veteran, pro-choice reform had disappeared over the last couple of years. Let's bring it back, give veterans more choice, shorten those wait times, and actually keep our promise to our veterans as we must.
I can't weigh in too much because I haven't been a veteran for too long. I will say it's trying to get an appointment is similar to the military from what I've noticed this year. Just this year, that's all I have experience with. I don't know what it was like under Trump's presidency. I can tell you if you're just trying to get like a eye appointment or something, dental, it does take a long time to get an appointment. I'll give him that. So if we could get some like community care, if we could go outside the VA, speed some of these times up, I think that would be pretty helpful.
Maddie, you got a question?
Do you think that it's
There we
time
go.
for Governor Walz and Kamala Harris to actually do a press conference and do an interview with the media?
I think it's
Duh.
time.
Come
Don't you
on.
all?
They haven't talked about anything. No reporters.
Look, it is such a cool thing to be able to run as Donald Trump's running mate and to be able to ask these wonderful people to be their vice president of the United States. It's an amazing honor. Aside from being a dad to those 3 babies and a husband to my wife, the greatest honor of my entire life is standing up here and being able to run to be the next vice president of the United States. But it is an awesome thing. It's not just a cool thing. It's not just a wonderful thing, though it is. I am asking you all for something that is quite profound. It's to be the vice president of the most powerful nation in the world at one of the most important times in our history. If you want to get that kind of job, and you're asking the American people to give you that kind of job, I think you ought to interview for that job, right? There are a lot of jobs that are less important than vice president of the United States where we expect people to interview before they get a promotion. Kamala Harris is asking the American people for a promotion, but she refuses to actually talk to them before it. Think about it. Every single event that Kamala Harris does, she's got a teleprompter in front of her. And I think...
But there's supposed to be a debate pretty soon, and any kind of shielding that she had from the media, it's not going to hold up once they actually go to a debate. And also the VPs are going to be doing a debate. So pretty quickly, all the things that she's kind of saying, like Trump supports Project 2025, she's not going to be able to hold up to that when she's face to face with Trump in an actual setting and he clearly just lays out, obviously, I don't support that. That's not my plan. You're an idiot for even saying that for months. You know, those certain things that she's been saying are not going to hold up. So she doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to actually talk to the media. My issue with the VA was always fighting for appointments with the elderly Vietnam and OIF vets that are there every day. Absolutely. I've only been there a couple times, so I don't have a lot of experience. But when I walked in, I noticed I was super young. I was definitely getting the feeling like I was really young to be there. And I mean, that's our benefits. We both get it just because we're not old, you know, we get to go. But yeah, definitely a lot of Vietnam vets. And of course, obviously, as you get older, you're going to be more likely to be going to a medical appointment. So that makes sense. But yeah, I definitely feel a little out of place being my age there.
The reason is because Kamala Harris cannot explain why she wanted to defund the police. Kamala Harris can't explain why she suspended deportations on day one. Kamala Harris can't explain why she cast the deciding vote on the Inflation Explosion Act that made the price of groceries and housing so expensive for normal American citizens all over this country. And because she can't answer those questions, she is running from the American people. But my ask, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whether you agree with Donald Trump on all the issues or most of the issues, or you disagree with him on most of the issues, is at least Donald Trump is who he is, and he respects the American people enough to go out and earn their vote instead of being expected to give in their vote.
You gotta give that to him. Donald Trump says what he's gonna say, even if you don't like it, and you can kind of decide from there. I'm not voting for him because I think he's a douche, or I like what he's saying. You can vote. But with Kamala, she is a chameleon. She tries to play to everybody. She's that typical like politician, very sneaky. I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna use my black voice when I'm talking to the black crowd and things like that. Like really just dirty moves that make her seem not genuine.
We'll just do a couple more. Any other Georgia folks who haven't asked a question before we go on? We'll do a couple national.
Got another like. Hell yeah, up to 4.
Senator, the former lieutenant governor, spoke at the DNC, had some choice words about the former president.
I saw that too.
We also know that Brian Kemp has also had some tough things to say about the former president. What's your reaction to these top Republicans from the state having reservations about the president and telling other Republicans to dump Trump?
Well, look.
Democrats spent like, I don't know, a couple days where they were saying, oh, we need to cool the temperatures. The temperatures are too high. And then immediately went back to bashing Trump. And when you've watched the DNC this entire week, it's been nothing but Trump's a white supremacist. He's going to do another January 6th, all of this crazy stuff, like our democracy's in danger. They completely flipped from when they were saying they needed to cool the temperature to pulling every card that they actually can. Kamala Harris reminds me of Isma of Emperor's New Groove, the way she's seeking and absorbing the power she could have. Yeah, exactly. She's a chameleon. And that's why you don't really trust her. But with Trump, he might say something you don't like, so you're not really in a good position either. He might say something that is a little bit off the wall.
First of all, of course, Tim Walz is going to attack Donald Trump because Tim Walz doesn't have a record to stand on. What I found very interesting, did anybody watch Tim Walz's speech?
I didn't see that
good.
one.
I was going to lose a lot of respect for you if you had said yes.
I wanted to,
If you watched Tim Walz's speech, it's part of my job, so I had to. You know what he never did? He never once said, I know we've got some train noise in the background here, so I'll try to be loud, but he never... The
Trump train?
It's the Trump train. That's right, ma'am. God bless you.
Riding the Trump train.
What Tim Walz never once said is, Kamala Harris accomplished this thing that lowered the cost of housing. Kamala Harris accomplished this thing that lowered the cost of groceries. Kamala Harris accomplished this thing that made America more peaceful and more secure. And he couldn't say that because Kamala Harris has caused the very policies that have made Americans' lives worse over the last few years. Kamala Harris caused the open border and caused the inflation crisis. And so it is telling that a person who has been vice president for 3.5 years, her argument and the argument of her surrogates is, we're going to do things better when I get power. She's had power for 3.5 years and she's made everything worse. That is the most simple and obvious fact of Tim Walz's speech, is he can't run on a record because the record is bad. Now, look, I actually talked to Brian Kemp very briefly earlier today, and yeah, you know, I read the headlines. Brian Kemp and Donald Trump have had some disagreements. I am 100% guarantee you that Brian Kemp is behind this ticket. He wants us to win because he believes the policies of Kamala Harris are disastrous for this country, and he's exactly right about that. So I'm glad to have the governor's support. I'm glad to have any Democrat, any independent, any moderate Republican or conservative Republican. We want anybody who believes in common sense to join the Trump train, because that's what's going to save this country.
And the more policies that she actually does come out and announce, the worse she's doing in the polls. And I'm seeing a lot of even like normally Democrat media outlets, like the major ones like CNN, are even turning on her, which just to see that is like, wow, that's crazy. Obviously, they're not supporting Trump, but they are starting to be critical of her policies, like price controls. Like they straight up come out and say, this is a dumb idea. It's not going to work.
And we'll do one more question from the national folks. Anybody else want to ask a question? Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Senator. I wanted to ask you, because another aspect of the DNC speeches yesterday was the kind of human aspect of immigration. They had one of the DACA recipients speak. As a husband of someone who is a daughter of immigrants, how do you look at the deportation plan that Trump has will put in place?
Yeah.
Specifically, the detention of families and children.
Well, so let me say 3 things about this. First, I am married to the daughter of immigrants to this country. I'm married to the daughter of legal immigrants to this country, people who respected the country enough to follow the rules before they came. And I think that's very important. And look, I love my wife more than anything in this world. I am so grateful that her family came here, but I'm also grateful that they came here in the right way and built a life in this country the right way. That really matters. Yep. You can't reward people for breaking the laws. If their first act of introduction to this country is to break the law, you can't reward them for that, or you're just going to encourage more law breaking. So
Democrats are just playing on your emotions. That's absolutely what is going on there. I can tell you, his wife's an immigrant. She didn't get deported under Trump. My wife's an immigrant. She didn't get deported under Trump. This is just fear-mongering. The same way Trump does how so many immigrants are actually coming into the country and it's causing all these issues and it's a lot of fear mongering. That's exactly what Kamala's doing on the other side of it. She's saying, if you're an immigrant in this country, you're going to get deported and sent back to your hellhole of a country because America's amazing and you want to stay here, so you need to vote for me. I heard somewhere on YouTube, I heard somewhere on YouTube stream that Biden referenced the name Trump about 46 times in his speech, and Trump said Biden 0 times. Hell, even Michelle Obama didn't mention Biden. Yeah, Michelle didn't mention Biden at all. She gave a very good speech. I'll give her that. If you're trying to rally around the Democrats, that was actually a pretty good speech. I thought her speech was better than Obama's personally. But to say Biden referenced Trump's name 46 times and Trump referenced it 0, I don't know if that's true. I'm sure Trump probably. So I know for a fact when I watched Trump take his or accept the nomination when he gave his speech, he was referencing Biden, saying a lot of things that had gone to hell under Biden in the country. He just wasn't saying his name. I think actually at one point he did say his name. Don't quote me on that. We can fact check it. But what he was trying to do is not say his name while talking about him. So that's a little iffy to say if that's true or not.
This is my second point. You hear Democrats say this a lot, and a couple speakers of the Democratic Convention say that Donald Trump wants to separate families. And I don't know how they can say that with a straight face, given that I just heard from a sheriff earlier today that they caught 2 kids who were being basically kidnapped by the Mexican drug cartels to help those drug cartels facilitate the sale of illegal drugs into our communities.
How can she say that? Because it buys votes. People, especially Democrats, get really emotional.
What happened to those kids? Where are those kids' parents? I guarantee our government doesn't know, because our government, under the policies of Kamala Harris, has lost thousands of innocent children to sex trafficking, to drug trafficking, to human trafficking. The party that believes in separating parents from their children is Kamala Harris, because that's what the open border has done. It's separated American citizens from their children. It's separated a lot of illegal aliens from their children. It's not good either way. Because the one group of people that I think we can all agree, I don't blame these poor children who are being sex trafficked and drug trafficked by the Mexican drug cartels, but I don't want to pursue policies that's going to make it easier for the drug cartels to take advantage of those children. We ought to pursue policies that's going to make it harder on the drug cartels. Go to war against those drug cartels.
Sure.
Don't facilitate their sex trafficking and their drug trafficking. And the final point that I'd say about this is, look, our message to illegal aliens who've come into this country by breaking our laws is yes. If you came into this country illegally, Donald Trump and I are going to work to send you home, because that's what is required if you want to have a real border policy.
That's common sense.
And our message to everybody who wants to come to this country is come through the right channels, because as soon as Kamala Harris is booted out of office, and it's going to happen in just a few short months, as soon as Kamala Harris is booted out of office, we are not open for business to illegal aliens or to the Mexican drug cartels anymore. That is our solemn promise to the American people, and we are very serious about it.
During Operation Wetback, they deported American citizens. I don't even know what that is, bro. I'll be honest with you. President Obama referenced the separation of families. Is he the ones that built the detention centers and basic SOPs for them? Yeah, that was always the argument against him, that he built the detention centers. So it's kind of on him. I'm sure Trump doubling down is probably not a good look if they're trying to defend against these kind of issues. But that's just how it is. Up to 5 likes. Come on. We're killing it today.
So since that's the last question for the press, and I know we have to get on the road here, let me just say a word of gratitude to all of you and to our law enforcement. We really believe in what you do. We believe that your work is sacred and important. We are grateful to you for doing it. We're grateful to you.
So just to reference what Paul was talking about, it's saying Operation Wetback was primarily a response to pressure from a broad coalition of farmers and business interests concerned with the effects of illegal immigrations from Mexico. Upon implementation, Operation Wetback gave rise to arrests and deportations by the Border Patrol.
To you for putting your lives on the line to make us safe. And in just a few short months, President Donald J. Trump is going to make your life easier, not harder. God bless you guys. Let's work to get it done. Thank you all, and good to see you.
I'm not seeing anything about them deporting American citizens, though. So, yeah. Oh, come on, man. Don't play music on me. I don't need that. All right, so that's him giving his speech. Pretty much it on that one. But the upcoming Pentagon briefing is going to happen. So I definitely want to see that one. Probably going to watch it here. But it doesn't start until for like another 12 minutes. So I'm going to watch the Pentagon briefing, and then Trump speaks pretty much right after that one, depending on how long she goes. Usually Trump's kind of late anyway. So she's supposed to start speaking the Pentagon briefing at 2:30, and then Trump speaks at 3. So I definitely want to hear what Trump has to say. That's definitely on my agenda. So I'm going to pull up our Pentagon briefing right here. Damn. Wait a second. Well, it's still not live yet, though. So yeah, give me a second. I'm going to do a restroom break real quick. I mean, we got like 12 minutes before it starts anyway. All right, I'm back. So let me see what's going on. Like I said, we got Pentagon briefing. They're going to talk about Israel-Hamas ceasefire that was actually going on. I definitely want to hear what's going on there. I heard they actually got some negotiations going on for a ceasefire, so that's definitely interesting. Want to hear about it. That's going to start in about 9 minutes. So waiting on that one. And then right after the Pentagon briefing, we figure out what's going on with the ceasefire. I'm going to see what Trump has to say. He is in Arizona, and he's going to give comments about the border, I'm sure. So definitely should be interesting to hear what he has to say. After that, I don't know. What else is going on? What's in the news today? Let me see what else is there. You think they would have had another like security briefing for the DNC, tell us what happened, how many people were actually arrested, you know, that kind of thing. But I didn't see that they were doing a briefing for that. Yeah, we got Pentagon press briefing, and the DNC starts at 5:30. So Harris's speech obviously is going to happen tonight. Al Sharpton, I think, is that who's on the agenda for that one? Let's see who's speaking tonight. I don't know if I'm going to watch it. I mean, I do want to see Harris give her acceptance speech. You didn't read far enough. There were Mexican Americans who got caught in the confusion. Well, let's look into it some more. I didn't really look that hard, I'll be honest with you. I was just trying to find it. I had Operation Wetback exported Americans. And there is first thing that comes up is from history.com. I would think that might be pretty safe. And it says as many as 1.3 million people may have been swept up in the Eisenhower era campaign called Operation Wetback. But for me to try to find where it was saying Mexican Americans were being deported, I'm not seeing that. Operation. It says tens of thousands of immigrants were shoved into buses, boats, and planes and sent to often unfamiliar parts of Mexico. But it's still calling them immigrants. It's not saying they're citizens. In Chicago, 3 planes a week were filled with immigrants and flowed to Mexico. In Texas, 25% of all of the immigrants deported were crammed onto boats later compared to slave ships, while others died of sunstroke, disease, and other causes in custody. The history one, that's the one you read? That's the one I'm looking here. It says, oh, here we go. It says, it's not clear how many American citizens were swept up into Operation Wetback, but the United States later claimed that 1.3 million people total were deported. So it's, before what I was referencing, they were kind of saying that they were immigrants. I don't know if they're considering them immigrant citizens or immigrants that were there illegal. So, but it's saying that there were some that were swept up in this 1.3 million. So yeah, you are right that some of these probably were Americans. It also goes on to say that, however, some historians dispute that claim, though hundreds of thousands of people were ensnared. That's a weird verb. It says, historian Kelly Light Hernandez, the number of deportees was drastically lower than the United States reported, likely closer to 300K. Due to immigrants who were caught, deported, and captured again after re-immigrating. So, okay, so they were deported and they came back, and then we kicked them out again. So it's kind of argued how many were actually deported. But so we don't know if it was 1.3 million. We don't know if it was 300K. But I thought they were disputing that they were Americans. I don't see where it says they were deporting Americans. Mass deportation of mass deportation of Mexican immigrants from the U.S. date to the Great Depression. Yeah, man, I'm not seeing it. Despite a widespread belief among native-born Americans that Mexicans came to the United States to steal jobs from American workers, many were invited to the country to work in its fields. So it's kind of, reading from that, it's kind of iffy. It's like they were invited to work, but yet weren't actually citizens, so they were being pushed back. So it's kind of iffy. I see what you're saying. They came here for work. They were invited. They stayed, but they still weren't citizens technically. So it's a weird thing. It's not as evil as saying whoever was running this operation and just started taking American families and deporting them to Mexico. That doesn't seem accurate either. The paragraph that starts short-lived operation. All right, I'll pull it up. The short-lived operation used military-style tactics to remove Mexican immigrants, some of them American citizens, from the United States. Okay, there we go. Yeah, actually, you're right. Though millions of Mexicans had legally entered the country through joint immigration programs in the first half of the 20th century, Operation Wetback was designed to send them back. So when it says joint immigration programs, is that referencing where they were talking about the work program? Or what? With the help of the Mexican government, which sought the return of Mexican nationals to alleviate a labor shortage, Border Patrol agents and local officials used military techniques and engaged in a coordinated tactical operation to remove the immigrants. Yeah, we would have to know what these joint immigration programs actually were doing. Were they saying that they were going to make them citizens, or were they saying, hey, you can come here, a joint immigration program, you can come here for a time to work and then you have to go back? Kind of like a visa, like a work visa. They come here, and then obviously you have a work visa, you don't get to stay here, you're gonna go back. Yeah, it's complicated. It's a very complicated issue. Let's say that. Anyway, the DNC. Who's actually speaking at the DNC tonight? That's what I want to know. CBS, of course, has ads and they won't let me go to their page and they're ruining everything. So just tell me a schedule. Pink is expected to perform prior to Kamala Harris' acceptance speech to close out the evening. So if you're into Pink, personally, I don't care about Pink, but go her, I guess. I don't know. Why can't they just give me like a list? I noticed yesterday when I was trying to look for the schedule that they didn't actually give the proper schedule until like an hour before the thing actually started. I just want to see who's actually speaking. Pink, former Mike Pence Mike Pence aide spoke last night. Yeah, I saw that. I saw the channels. Maybe USA Today actually has a proper schedule for it. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. See if there's anybody here that I actually recognize. Bunch of representatives. Nobody too important. It says the official speaker schedule has not been released. It'd be nice to have that. It's about to start in like a couple of hours. Maybe 3 hours or so. I don't know why it hasn't started yet. Let's see. Yeah, we had Bill Clinton and Oprah Winfrey last night, if that's your thing, for the DNC. Stevie Wonder and John Legend did a performance. And the full list of speakers. Okay, here we go. Shut up. Bunch of ads. Okay. Kerry Washington. She's an actress. I don't really know her too much. Well, so at least it's live now. Let's see. I'll bring it back over. They got their music going. I don't care too much about their music. I have it muted. PN. So this is the Pentagon press briefing. She's supposed to start any minute now. They're going to talk about an Israel-Hamas ceasefire. That's pretty much what I'm tuning in for. I want one of the journalists to ask about that so we can figure out what's actually going on in the world. Oh, here we go. Let me turn our audio back on. All right, so here is your Pentagon press briefing. They're going to talk about a Hamas-Israel ceasefire, so that's what I'm here for. We want the journalists to ask this question and we can figure out what's actually going to happen in this situation. So she just came out. Let me hit play.
Good afternoon. I do not have that much at the top, so I'll be quick and then happy to jump in and take your questions.
Perfect. More time for questions.
So as you saw yesterday, U.S. Central Command announced that the USS Abraham Lincoln, equipped with F-35C aircraft, entered the CENTCOM area of responsibility. The movement of the Abe into the CENTCOM AOR was directed by Secretary Austin earlier this month as part of broad adjustments to U.S. military posture in the region designed to improve U.S. force protection.
What I hear is that Trump is trying to throw a wrench in the deal. I heard something about how he had made negotiations with Netanyahu, even though he's not a public official, and that's definitely illegal. On a side note, after seeing the billionaires at the DNC, I think they only want to tax Elon. Why do they hate Elon so much? I mean, I could see him endorsing Trump. That would lead to their hatred. But even before that, they really just turned on him so quick. They turned on Elon just like they turned on Kamala Harris. Before they hated her and now they love her. Elon, they loved him. Now they hate him. DNC is just quick to turn on people.
Increased support for the defense of Israel and to ensure the United States is prepared to respond to a various range of contingencies. Again, we remain focused on efforts to de-escalate tensions in the region, and while also remaining focused on securing a ceasefire.
So Logan Act violation? Yeah, I hope one of the journalists ask about that to see if it was actually true. I want to see what the press actually has to say.
As part of a hostage deal to bring all of the hostages home and to end the war in Gaza. With that, happy to take your questions.
Bring it on.
One quick follow on the Lincoln. It's crossed into CENTCOM, which means it's still out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, though, correct?
I don't have exact location. I wouldn't be able to give you the exact location of where she is, but she's in the Central Command AOR, and she will remain there.
I understand that, but she's still quite a ways from.
For more on her movements, I'd refer you to CENTCOM. I don't have her exact location, but she is in the AOR. I'll just leave it at that.
I'm not gonna give you
and
that.
then secondly, the Greek ship that caught fire, that was attacked and caught fire. The fire, I think, is out at this point, but do you know, is the U.S. going to try to do anything either through coordination or do something itself? Because it's still loaded with fuel.
So what, just for awareness, what you're referring to is the Houthis launched an attack on a vessel that was carrying approximately 1 million barrels of crude oil. I'm not. I know that the ship did catch fire. I don't know the status.
Wow.
What I would say is that once again, the Houthis have attacked a ship that is carrying oil and that could likely spill into the Red Sea, creating an environmental disaster. Also brings to question, what exactly does this accomplish, seeing as how they said that they were launching these attacks to help the people of Gaza. Not exactly sure how that helps anyone in Gaza. And this was a Greek-flagged ship that had a crew of Russian and Filipino sailors. So not exactly sure their intention. In terms of U.S. response, that through Operation Prosperity Guardian, we have ships in the in that region that continue to defend and protect freedom of navigation. The U.S. will assist where possible, but I believe another partnership was in the vicinity and was able to help assist getting crew off of that ship.
Right. The French got them off the ship. I'm talking about the impending environmental disaster.
Yeah.
Is there any effort ongoing right now that you're aware of that the U.S. is involved in to do something to mitigate what could be an environmental disaster there?
At the moment,
There
I
we
think
go.
we're working with that the private company, but I'm not aware of like right now we are engaged in any environmental mitigation. This is something that we're going to work with that private company on, but I'm not aware of anything else that we're doing at this moment. That's not to say that we won't in the future.
I think many Dems resent Musk for turning Twitter into a dumpster fire. Yeah, I could see that. I'm not really a Democrat. I don't really consider myself a Republican either. So when I looked at Twitter, even under more Democrat reigns, it always seemed like a dumpster fire. Either way you look at it, like it's been a constant dumpster fire, and it is what it is. But yeah, I could see them having their platform with only their ideas, and now it's more open to different ideas, everybody's ideas. Of course, yeah, they're probably going to hate that.
Yeah. Joe.
Thanks.
Got another like, up to
Could you provide any
6.
updates on
Let's
the
do it.
Georgia submarine, is it still in transit?
The Georgia is still in transit. She's in the Eastern Mediterranean. And when she chops into the Central Command area of responsibility, it'll be pretty noticeable. But, we can let you know.
And then can I ask
Woo!
about
7
force
likes.
posture,
Let's
the
do
increased
it.
Force posture in the region. It was presumably done in the aftermath of the Iranian threats and the threats from Hezbollah and others to retaliate against Israel. It's been a couple weeks, I think 2 or 3 now. We haven't seen that retaliation.
8 likes.
Is it an open-ended
Jesus.
deployment of this increased force posture, or until an attack happens, or how is the Pentagon assessing how long these troops and these assets will be there? Because some of these were taken out of the Indo-Pacific, which the department has said is the #1 threat to U.S. national security.
So in terms of a timeline, I don't have anything to broadcast in terms of how long the TR will stay in theater and how long the ABE will stay in theater. But in terms of your question on, timing of a potential response from Iran, we've moved capabilities into the region that I think it's fair to say have gotten into the headspace of Iran, and will influence their calculation on how and if they choose to respond. We don't want to see that happen, but we have 2 carrier strike groups there, each, with 4 destroyers. That sends a very powerful message of deterrence. And it also sends a message that, we will stand with Israel should we need to come to their defense. But I can't, I don't have a crystal ball to be able to forecast how long they're going to stay there. Only that I can tell you is that we are well postured should we need to come to the defense of Israel.
Just one last one. From what I tried to look up, the Secretary of Defense hasn't had a single call with his Lebanese counterpart. I know the Joint Chiefs have spoken to the Lebanese Army Chief, but throughout this since I guess post October 7th, and that's a key scene of what's going on in the region. Is there a reason? Is that a reflection of what the department thinks of the current government?
No, I don't think so. I don't have any calls to announce or read out. I think it's important to remember that the Secretary has calls with different variety of counterparts in the region, and it's not just from the Secretary. It's the interagency that engage their counterparts and at all different levels of government. Just because he hasn't doesn't mean that there aren't ongoing conversations at different levels of government. And as you know, whether it be Israel or Egypt or Qatar or any other country, the Secretary has engaged over time. And recently, I guess it seems recently, but was in CENTCOM a few months ago, and just leave it at that. Great. I'm going to go Lucas, and then I'll go to the phones.
Sabrina, do you support Ukraine's incursion into Russia?
So we're supporting Ukraine and what they need on the battlefield right now. As you heard us say time and again, we are getting a better understanding of what the Ukrainians are doing in Kursk. Our policy does allow for them to engage in those counterfires, but we are still supporting Ukraine in what they need on the battlefield, and that is through different presidential drawdown packages. That's not going to change.
You said something similar last week, that you're still trying to learn what they're doing. I think it's pretty obvious what they're doing. And for the whole world, it's obvious what they're doing. Why can't the Pentagon publicly support Ukraine's incursion into Russia?
Well, Lucas, to respectfully push back on that,
come on.
I would say that we have and are
8 likes.
supportive of
Let's go.
Ukraine broadly. This is
specifically support this
sure.
operation.
So, if you let me finish,
She's getting spicy.
So when it comes to Kursk, we have an understanding from what President Zelensky laid out that they want to create a buffer zone. We are still working on with Ukraine on how that fits into their strategic objectives on the battlefield itself. When we feel confident on that, we have a better understanding of how that all knits together. I'm happy to read out more, but right now we're still working and still have some questions, and we're getting that back. And the Secretary is going to engage again with Minister Umerov. Yeah, I understand these things take time.
And also one on the Houthis.
Sure.
General Kurilla wants to destroy this group. Why won't you let him?
Can you repeat that?
General Kurilla, head of U.S. forces in the Middle East, the CENTCOM commander, wants to destroy the Houthis. Why won't you let him do that?
I think I'm not sure if you're referring to specific comments. I think General Kurilla is in lockstep with the Secretary on wanting to degrade the Houthis' capabilities to being able to disrupt shipping lanes in the Red Sea and the BAM.
Okay.
And General Kurilla has done an incredible job of bringing together and leading a coalition of like-minded nations to degrade the Houthis' capabilities. And you're almost seeing them doing that on a daily basis. And it actually has degraded the Houthis' capabilities.
So destroy them.
We now have an environmental disaster in the making. You said 1 million tons of oil is about to be dumped in the Red Sea. This is a big problem.
Yeah, can I just say 1 million, potentially an environmental catastrophe of 1 million barrels of crude oil in the Houthis' backyard. That is an environmental disaster that they're going to have to deal with. And at the end of the day, you tell me what they say on how that gets to their strategic objectives, because I'm not sure that I'm understanding that. I'm going to go to the phones and then happy to come back to the room. Jeff Schogel, Task and Purpose.
That was getting spicy.
I came in late, so I'm really sorry if you've already addressed this. Is the Theodore Roosevelt still in the AOR, meaning there are 2 carrier groups in the AOR?
That's correct, Jeff. There are 2 carriers in the AOR right now.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Heather, USNI.
Hi, just to go on about the suit union. and the environmental disaster. So at this point, the Houthis have now created a couple different environmental disasters and sank a couple different ships. You know, in terms of degrading, when you're seeing them being able to do this after all the strikes that the U.S. has done.
What will happen if Israel accidentally hits one of our ships? Why would they do that?
Do you think that the Pentagon has been successful in degrading the Houthis' capabilities?
Yeah, thanks, Heather, for the question. So the simple answer is yes, we have been successful in degrading their capabilities. They still maintain a robust arsenal, but we have been able to degrade their capabilities over time, and we have been able to protect ships that transit the Red Sea with our alliance through Operation Prosperity Guardian. So it's not for nothing. We still know that they maintain capabilities, but the fact that we have been able to conduct dynamic strikes to prevent ships from being harmed, to prevent innocent sailors and mariners transiting that region. Yes, they have gotten a few attacks through when it comes to some vessels transiting, but we've also been able to degrade their capabilities, and I think that is due in large part to the leadership of General Kurilla and the coalition that he's built with the secretary as well of Operation Prosperity Guardian. I'll take one more from the phone and then happy to come back in the room. Laura Seligman, Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal, come on.
Are you there?
Hey, sorry for the delay, just unmuting myself. A couple questions following up on the Kursk incursion. First of all, what is DoD's understanding is the strategic goal of the Kursk incursion? And then secondly, has the use of U.S. weapons in Kursk violated any U.S. policies?
Yeah, thanks, Laura, for the question. In terms of their goals, I would direct you to what President Zelensky said a few days ago, which is our understanding is to create a buffer zone. We do have some more questions on that. We are trying to understand more on, how that knits into their strategic objectives on the battlefield. And in terms of your follow-up, our policy does allow for Ukraine to conduct counterfires to defend itself from Russian attacks coming over that border region. And that border region does include Kursk. It does include Sumy. And so they are defending themselves from Russian attacks within that region. All right, happy to come back in the room. Oren.
Two questions. One on Ukraine. When you're talking about a buffer zone and Ukraine tells you that's what they're creating or says openly that's what they're creating, is there a limit that you have placed on the Ukrainians on how big that buffer zone can be? How wide of a buffer zone are they going for?
Good question.
That's something that we continue to work with them on exactly what are their strategic objectives on creating that buffer zone and how, if they plan to expand. These are questions that we're continuing to ask, so I don't have an update for you right now.
So
we don't know.
Communicated to you, here is how far we're going with our buffer zone.
Not to my knowledge.
And then on the Abraham Lincoln, Secretary Austin had ordered it to accelerate. It's now in the AOR. What was its original arrival date supposed to be, and how much time did the acceleration cut off? How much faster did it get there?
Yeah, so I'm not going to get into timelines and specific dates, but what I can tell you is that in transit, Indo-PACOM had set up a few stops that were in the pre-planning phase that the aide was going to engage on, and those were pulled down so that she could have an expedited in-shop into Central Command. Goyle.
Thank you, Madam. Two questions, please. One, tomorrow morning, Defense Secretary, of course, will be welcoming the Defense Minister of India, Mr. Rajnath Singh. So much going on in the region in South China Sea and all the conflicts going on in Bangladesh, conflict going on in Pakistan, and also China's expansion in the region going on. So what do we have new now between the U.S. and India military-to-military relations when Secretary Lloyd Austin welcomed him tomorrow here at the Pentagon?
So as you mentioned, it's happening tomorrow. So I'm not going to get ahead of the secretary. We will have a readout. There will be a range of issues discussed. I have no doubt they will be discussing the close coordination and partnership when it comes to the Indo-Pacific, and our shared goals of maintaining and keeping a free and open Indo-Pacific. But I'm just not going to get ahead of the secretary. And once that meeting concludes, we will have a readout.
Madam, before my second question, how the two leaders are getting together? Have they known each other very well as far as relations are concerned, and how the military-to-military relations between the U.S. and India are standing today?
the mill-to-mill relationships between the United States and India are strong. You've seen that cooperation deepen, and not just from a DoD perspective, but from an administration perspective. Our close coordination and working together remains strong. And you saw the secretary, when he visited India, announce some of those deliverables.
They didn't have a White House press briefing again today. They haven't had one for like a week. Yeah, I was looking for it, and there's absolutely nothing. I guess because of the DNC, they're not going to have a briefing all week.
I'm not going to go through all of that, what he announced then, but it remains strong, and I'm just not going to get ahead of the meeting that's happening tomorrow, but we will have a readout after that meeting. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to jump over here. Louis, and then over to you. Yeah.
First on Ukraine, earlier this week, General Ryder said that the indications were that a small number of Russian forces were moving into Kursk. Is that still the same guidance, or can you amplify that just a little bit more and give us some information about where these forces are coming from? Are they sizable enough to potentially push back?
So I can't get into more details right now on the size and how many, how Russia is repositioning some of their forces. We know that there has been some movement, but I can't get into details on what that, more specifics on what that looks like.
And
KJP must be relieved. Exactly. She probably took the whole week off. She's vacationing somewhere.
As you strive to get more indications,
she's on the beach somewhere with Biden.
Of the strategic purpose. Are you seeing the Ukrainians digging in to try to hold those positions that they've seen so far, or does it seem more like they continue to be on a broader offensive?
Well, that's actually some of our, questions that we have for Ukraine is their intention to continue to hold, or how, when they say they're creating a buffer zone, and to Oren's question of, how large are they going to expand? These are some of the questions that we're asking, because if they are going to create a buffer zone that does entail creating multiple defensive lines. And so those are questions that we're working through with them. I don't have all those answers right now, but that's something that, the Secretary is going to engage Minister Umerov again in the coming days. When we have more to share, we certainly will. But I think it's important that, Ukraine also speak to their operations, and Ukraine should really speak to their objectives and goals. And that's still something that we're trying to learn from them on how this fits in to their strategic operations.
Trump is expected to speak in about 10 minutes, but he's normally pretty late, so just going to watch the rest of this.
It's important that, our support for Ukraine is still unwavering. We're still going to have PDA packages that come out from this building. I don't have one to announce today if that was going to be your follow-up, but, we are going to continue to support Ukraine in their fight and whatever they need to be successful.
So my follow-up is actually going to be a follow-up to Joseph's point from earlier about preparing, changing the force posture for potential retaliation from Iran. That hasn't happened. It's been almost 3 weeks now. Do you see a correlation between any lack of action there and the new Iranian government, essentially trying to determine its path forward?
So I can't really speculate on that and the new government that's forming. I think that by surging capabilities into the region, by having 2 carriers in the Central Command or in CENTCOM, by moving destroyers closer to Israel, should they need to be called to the defense of Israel, the announcement of the Georgia as well, having a squadron of F-22s also in the region, I think that gets into the headspace of Iran. And I think that gets into, they see us positioning, should we need to support Israel? I'm sure that gets to their calculation. What that, means for them at the end of the day, that I can't speak to. And their new government, as you mentioned, I can't really speak to that.
She hasn't really talked about a ceasefire at all. It's been all about protecting Israel.
I can just speak to our movements, and we are messaging that we are there to deter, and that, of course, we are there to protect our forces, and if needed, to come to the defense of Israel. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Couple of questions. Before that, if you allow me, I have someone to introduce you, Mr. Mughal. Pakistani journalist, we've been in Russia and United Kingdom, reported many political events and other things. Now he's joining us from here. So the question is regarding the top Iraqi official visited this week Pakistan and had meeting with Pakistani military officials, and it's been reported from July that Pakistan and Iraq both comes to an agreement of 1.8 billion US dollars for the 12 units of Mashak training jets, and now they are in talks regarding JF-17 fighter aircraft that China and Pakistan mutually produced. So at the same time, when US is considering its troop withdrawal from Iraq, and Iraqi military is considering to get some Chinese technology from Pakistan, is there any concern from US, or you are aware on this?
I don't really have a comment to offer on unfortunately, I don't have a lot to offer on what you're asking right now. What I can tell you is that when it comes to our relationship with Iraq, the HMC conversations are ongoing. We are moving towards a bilateral security agreement. When we have more to announce on that, we certainly will, but I just don't have more for you today on that.
So about the USS Abraham Lincoln that just arrived in Middle East.
Dems will try to get rid of the Electoral College. If they do, Republicans won't be able to... Oh, this text changed. Dems will try to get rid of the Electoral College. If they do, Republicans won't be able to win presidential elections. The GOP is way too unpopular. We have won the popular vote. We haven't won the popular vote in 20 years.
With F-35 fleet. So is there also something in the consideration with the US to address your Arab allies security from that, specifically because we are aware that like US and Saudi Arabia both are in talks for defense deal, and Saudi Arabia continuously asking for defense sureties from the US. So in the context of Iran retaliation to Israel, is there something consideration as well for the Saudi context to secure their interest with this placement?
I don't have anything in terms of the, I think Saudi should speak for their own government and their own decisions. Our decisions are made on, what the secretary deems is needed for the region, and working with General Kurilla and others to ensure that, one, of course, we're always taking into consideration protection for our forces in the region. Two, we do not want to see, we know that tensions are high, we want to see a de-escalation of tensions in the region. Three, we're also sending a message that, should we need to do what we did on April 13th, we are even better positioned than we were then to come to the defense of Israel. Again, we don't want to see it get to that level. We want to see tensions de-escalate, and the best way for us to see that happen is through seeing the ceasefire deal come to fruition. Our teams are working hard over there right now to see that be put into place, and we want to see the hostages come home.
Just a little on the high-level military commission.
That's because the three most popular states are Democratic. Yeah, sorry, I was looking at the name of Ashley Sanders. I'm like, isn't this the lady that comes in and calls me like a MAGA and tries to insult me every time and then leaves? Not sure. It might be a different Ashley, but that's where my headspace was.
In the Iraq. So with the ongoing possible Iranian retaliation, is there any changing about the US troop withdrawal talks or something that was in process, something in consideration?
The HMC conversations and dialogues continue. I'm not going to speculate on what a future attack could do to those.
You're right, no ceasefire talk. It's like they know it will never happen. Yeah, but I mean, at least ask Paul's Trump question. Like, was Trump actually talking to Netanyahu? At least bring some of that up. I mean, that's what people really want to hear, and it's going to get clicks.
Conversations, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. A few days ago, General Ryder said that if we see any real threats from ISIS based in Afghanistan, we'll take an action. So the Taliban officials claim that they eliminated Daesh or ISIS in Afghanistan. My question is are the Taliban a partner with the Pentagon or with the U.S. government in terms of fighting Daesh or ISIS?
So the U.S. has a global coalition to defeat ISIS. The Taliban is not part of that. The U.S. works with like-minded partners and allies when it comes to ensuring the defeat of ISIS. I don't have more for you on to anything additional to offer. I'm going to go to Constantine over here. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, Sabrina. CNN is reporting that the Army is looking to contract some boats to take 3 of the Army JLOT ships back to the United States. Can you speak to why this is necessary?
I would refer you to the Army. I don't have anything on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. No.
Can you give a JLOTS update more broadly,
Sure.
specifically where the aid is that was left to be delivered?
Sure. So in terms of JLOTs, I think I read out, maybe it was last week, but we do have some of our soldiers and sailors that have returned back CONUS. We still have about 6 million pounds of aid that remains on the Cape Trinity. The Cape Trinity just recently left Cyprus and is moving towards Ashdod. We're hoping within the next couple days you're going to see aid roll off the Cape Trinity, and then when that happens, the Cape Trinity would be redeployed. But that's our latest update. Jim.
9 likes. Best stream yet.
Ukraine.
Woo.
So, have you guys seen that the Russians, are they pulling folks out of the Donbass? Because that offensive is still going on. And is the Kursk operation having any effect at all on the Donbass?
So, in terms of where Russians are repositioning some of their troops from, I can't really speak to that. We know that there has been some movement, but, really that's not for us to speak to.
How long have you been streaming today? Almost hour and a half.
I think when it comes to your second question, it remains to be seen how Kursk impacts the East. That's something that, we're still trying to get a better understanding from the Ukrainians on the long-term goals in the region or in that area, and also understanding how that fits into their strategic operation. So, that's still something that we're working through, and I just don't.
I mean, the channel, this channel I think is about a year old, but it didn't really seriously start streaming until probably like June or July. So not very long at all.
I just don't have that answer for you on how that impacts the East just yet, because I don't think we know.
Is that one of the things that the Secretary is asking his counterpart?
I won't go beyond the readout, but you can believe that the Secretary is asking a lot of questions. Yes, one here, and then I'll go to Liz.
Pretty new channel.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has visited Chechnya after 13 years. How do you see this visit, especially in context of Ukraine advancing into Russian territory? Is it a backstep of Russia, or is it a victory of U.S.-led Western Bloc military strategy that as Chechnyan group has been supporting Russian army? So President Vladimir Putin has visited it after 13 years. So is Russia on the back foot right now?
I think you're seeing Russia continue to recruit and amass a force. And, they have that ability to do that. I can't really speak to this visit. I'm sorry, I just don't know enough about it to really comment on it. But what I can tell you is what we're doing. And what we're doing is supporting Ukraine, and you have the Secretary leading the Ukraine Defense Contact Group almost monthly. You have 50 nations coming together to support Ukraine. So that stands in contrast to some of the friends that Russia is turning to when it comes to procuring either security assistance or, whatever it might be. That stands in strong contrast to, the 50 countries and like-minded nations.
Sorry, driving. Who said Trump may have violated the Logan Act? Paul said that specifically for the Logan Act, but I saw something on X where it showed that he was violating that. There was supposedly a conversation with Netanyahu that he was making deals for a ceasefire already before he had been elected. So that's obviously going to be illegal. They have not mentioned that once here. Maybe that's more of a question for the White House press brief and not really the Pentagon too much. That's probably what they're getting at here. Popped up on my Roku. Hell yeah, my channel is actually getting out there. I think PBS reported it. PBS? Okay, yeah. So my channel is starting to gain some traction. Like we had almost 15 people in here concurrent at one point. So that's pretty cool. Actually starting to get somewhere. Maybe in a few months, I'll be able to get into the YouTube partner program.
That are supporting Ukraine every single day in their battlefield needs. Liz, last one.
Thanks, Sabrina.
We have Liz and Lucas in the room today.
Yeah,
okay.
tag team.
Not sure.
Moving
I
back
don't
to
either.
The Houthis, why
but I heard
does
it
the US
too.
not
You're not
have
alone.
A larger presence in the Red Sea
I saw
and Gulf
something
of
about
Aden?
it.
Because the Houthis are still having successful attacks.
So I wouldn't say that we don't have a presence. We still maintain a presence in the region, and it doesn't, just because the United States might not have a destroyer in the Red Sea doesn't mean that we don't have other partners operating there that are either part of Operation Prosperity Guardian or operating on their own. So I think it's important to remember that this is a global coalition and it is a global problem. And it's not just the United States that is there to defend shipping lanes and to ensure freedom of navigation. It is on all of us. And that's what you're seeing, other countries come to the rescue and support of.
I like the smaller channels where you can participate more. Yeah, me too. I kind of like this setting. The whole point of this channel was for me to watch both sides of the political content to see who I wanted to vote for this year. That was the whole point of this channel, to live stream things that I think are interesting. So I'm just trying to figure out who I want to vote for. I watch both sides. I try to be not biased, even though I'm definitely probably leaning towards Trump. I think that's kind of obvious at this point, but I try to not be too biased. I try to watch all of Kamala's stuff as well. I'm watching a lot of the DNC, things like that. So
crews who were hit by the Houthis earlier this morning. Another country ship helped rescue that crew. So the United States will always adjust its force posture there, but just because we don't necessarily have a presence in that specific strait doesn't mean that one of our partners or allies doesn't.
Just a quick follow-up. Since these attacks are still continuing and the U.S. hasn't been able to deter the Iran-backed Houthis, how is the U.S. supposed to deter this potential attack from Iran on Israel?
And yet I just got questions about why hasn't Iran attacked yet? And
sounds good or sounds cool. I lean left, which is good because I think we need more people from the left in this channel. I think most people showing up here are probably on the right. And the only person that came in that was really on the left is maybe some angry people that were on Twitch, and then that Ashley person that I talked before, she comes in and just insults me and leaves because I think she thinks I'm like a MAGA person or something.
And I would almost say is deterrence working.
She literally comes in and she's like, "You white supremacists," and then just leaves.
I can't speak for Iran. The Houthis continue to engage in their
You're a news addict.
Unlawful
Me too.
attacks against innocent mariners. I'm not exactly sure how hitting a ship carrying over 1 million barrels of crude oil and creating, a spill in your backyard helps people in Gaza who you said you're trying to help. Not sure how that works. Also, I think this vessel.
Shady says heels up tampon. I'm not really sure what you're saying with that, to be honest. Paul makes us look bad. Exactly. I'm here for open discussion, and I try to fact check in real time when even like Trump's giving a speech. You see my video on Trump yesterday. We try to fact check it in real time to see if he's actually telling the truth. Do the same with Kamala.
Was leaving from Iraq and was a Greek flag ship. So again, not sure how that plays into your broader strategic objectives. And then, on top of that, what does that accomplish? You sunk a ship in your backyard and now you have potentially an environmental disaster. We're going to continue to hold the Houthis accountable. You see us do that. CENTCOM puts out, pretty regular updates on when we engage. Our commitment is there through Operation Prosperity Guardian. We're going to continue to engage where appropriate. And then, of course, when it comes to Iran, we have 2 carriers in the region. We have a squadron of F-22s. I think that sends a really powerful message, but I can't get into.
Shady says, okay, open borders, fake IDs to vote. I'm not really sure what you're asking there.
To more than that. Yes.
I just want to follow up on that question. Why not strike the launchers? I mean, at the end of the day, it's driven so much global trade out. There's going to be extra costs that are going to be reflected in the economy over this. At what point do you need to escalate strikes on the missile launchers themselves to try to establish perhaps a little bit more deterrence, a little bit more order to the questions that have been kind of going around on that?
You're talking about Houthis?
Correct.
We have struck missile launchers.
I understand that, but it doesn't seem to have attenuated anything that the Houthis at this point are doing, and yet they keep imposing costs, and these sort of drib-drab attacks are driving more shipping out of that, right? I mean, their whole goal is to create as much disruption as possible, even if they take environmental damage at the end of it. I mean, is there some calculus, some metric that attacks get to X amount, and we would respond in a more forceful manner to send maybe a clearer deterrent?
I think every single day that we respond and we blow something up that they are about to launch does send a forceful message. And even though, even though they continue to launch their attacks, we are still degrading their capabilities. And every single day that they launch attacks, they're not always successful. They're not always hitting a ship. They're not always, their intentions, while, can't get into their mindset, they're not always achieving their goals. And sometimes, things are landing, miles and miles away from their intended targets. So what is also their objective and their goals at the end of the day? To your question on the launchers, I mean, from looking at some of the strikes we've done, we've hit over 150 launchers. We're going to continue to take the actions that. One of my favorite channels is Lolo's Lounge. I haven't heard of that one. We're all lefties, but we go through source documents and dig deep into stuff. Sounds like something I'd enjoy, though. I might check it out. We need to protect commercial shipping, to protect our forces in the region. And we're just going to continue to do that day in and day out. I'm going to go to Mike and then I'm going to wrap up.
It just does not appear that this international coalition is finding success against the Houthis. These attacks keep happening.
I would actually push back on that and say it doesn't appear that the attacks that the Houthis are launching, be it every single day, every other day, every few days, are actually meeting their intended targets. They just created an environmental disaster right outside their own home country. Like, what purpose does that serve? That is going to have lasting impacts, and they've done that before. I mean, what kind of impact does that have for the region?
Their goal is to degrade shipping, and they're doing it.
So I'll just one more on this. While they continue to launch attacks, we have ensured that shipping has continued through those shipping lanes. We want to see it. We want to see it protected. That's why you have Operation Prosperity Guardian. We're going to continue to do our jobs, and we'll leave it at that. Mike, and then we'll wrap up.
The British
All right, last
MOD
question.
said the Russians have been forced to create ad hoc infantry units out of support personnel and Air Force units to engage the Ukrainians in the Kursk region. Can the Pentagon confirm that? What does that say about the Russians' ability to oppose Ukraine? The fact that they don't have enough, apparently, mainline infantry units.
I can't confirm those reports. I haven't seen what you're referencing. This is something that we are talking to the Ukrainians about what their long-term objectives are in Kursk, and creating that buffer zone, what that means in terms of their own commitment and military power, how much they're going to need for that region. That's something that we're continuing to work with them on. Okay, thanks everyone.
There it is. See if Trump's giving his speech yet. I like how sparks, but the chat just flies by. What platforms are you on? So I do YouTube, obviously, and then I multi-stream to Twitch, but I don't get a lot of viewers on Twitch. I don't know if I'm setting up the channel wrong or something, but not a lot of people go over there. So occasionally I'll get some people coming in, and not too often though. Not too often at all. So, all right, well, I'm going to wait on Trump. He's supposed to be doing a 3 o'clock speech. It's 3:13. He usually takes some time, though. So I'm going to run to the restroom real quick before he comes out, and then we'll continue and see what Trump actually has to say. I want to hear what his response is from all of these insults that are being flung at him from the DNC. All right, I'm back. All right, so Trump is expected to give his remarks in Arizona, border town. We're just waiting on him to actually come out. So I'm gonna see what else is going on in the world while we wait, because normally Trump does take a little bit. You know, they got Secret Service that has to clear the area. I don't know if he's doing an outside venue again or what's actually going on, but with everything going on with him, obviously it takes time. So DNC tonight, obviously Kamala Harris is going to do her acceptance of the nomination. I don't know if I'm going to watch that or not. I've watched a lot of Kamala lately. Also with the DNC all week, I've watched a lot of Democrat stuff. But if they had someone more interesting, I probably would watch. As far as like their lineup, right now when I'm just looking at the lineup, there's nobody I really connect with, but I do want to see Kamala's speech. But anybody outside of that, I don't know if there's like any good guess. That like I said before, there's Pink is probably gonna come out, but I'm not a Pink fan, so I don't really care about that too much. Trying to see if they had just somebody that was interesting. You know, last night they had Bill Clinton. I wanted to see that. And then Oprah Winfrey came out, which was kind of a surprise. I'm not really a big fan of her either, but, you know, at least she has enough pull to where at least I would want to watch her. But tonight, Al Sharpton, not a fan of Al Sharpton, really. Who else? A bunch of people I don't know. The theme for tonight is For Our Future. Every night they've done a theme. So yeah, I don't know. I'll probably watch it though. At least Kamala's speech, I'll watch that. I don't know if I'll actually watch the whole DNC. Not really a big fan. I probably should be spending that time with my wife instead, unless they got something just crazy that I need to stream. All right, so it looks like they got Trump actually coming out here. So let me pull this up. All right, so the Trump train is rolling into Arizona. I'm really hoping that he is going to respond to some of these insults that they've been slinging at him all week at the DNC. Hopefully he has something to say in regards to that. I'm sure being in Arizona and this being a border town, he's probably going to talk a lot about immigration and his policies going forward. So go ahead and see what they have to say so far.
He spoke with over 100 AMO, CBPO, and Border Patrol agents. During that time, he shook every single one of their hands. He listened to every single one of their concerns, and he acted on that. November 19th, 2023, President Trump was in Edinburgh, Texas, serving National Guardsmen, DPS officers, and a few off-duty Border Patrol agents. During that time, he shook over 200 people's hands and listened to what they had to say. These are the rank and file. That's why that wall is successful. He listened to the men and women that were on the front lines on exactly what needed to be on that wall. He listened to what they have to say. Contrast that with Kamala Harris, and nobody can say that I didn't try to work with her. I met with her transition team.
Yeah.
I told her transition team exactly what would happen if they got rid of his policies. We suggested policies to her within her parameters, and she refused to listen. I met with Secretary Mayorkas, again, trying to work with this administration. I supported Secretary Mayorkas' confirmation. It was a big mistake. mistake that would never happen again. But in conveying to him again the policies that would actually work within their parameters, Kamala Harris completely ignored those policies. She claims that she wants a humane, safe border. Yet what she's given us is absolute chaos. We had a safe border. She could have implemented policies. She refused to do this. This election is going to come down to policies. And when you compare President Trump's policies, it doesn't matter. Economic policies, foreign policy, border security policy, it doesn't matter. You compare those policies side by side, and he wins every day.
I'm wondering what the t-shirt in the back is, what they're holding.
That's why we have to have somebody in the White House that is going to listen to the women and men that know what they're talking about, that are on the ground, like President Trump did before and like he will do again. President Trump will be back in the White House, and we will secure this border. Thank you, President.
All right. So there you have it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Downs. I'm the sheriff here in Cochise County, Arizona here, and also the chairman for National Sheriff Association for Border Security. Let me just say, on behalf of America's sheriffs, behalf of my good citizens here and all those who wear a badge, thank you, President Trump, for coming here. We appreciate you. It's good seeing you again also. I will say this. My community's tired. My community's frustrated. Over the last 3.5 years, what we've dealt in this county when it comes to crime, the policies that have failed this country, the policies that have failed our citizens, and the tragedies that my neighbors are addressing silently because nobody's listening. Over the last 31 months here in Cochise County, to see the real impact of a community, we have booked 3,762 people in my county jail for border-related crimes. These are not immigration issues. These are border-related crimes up to double-digit murders. It's cost my county $12.5 million. I get $0 from the federal government on that. When President Trump took office, 6 years ago, you probably never heard much about fentanyl. President Trump's last year in office, in 2020, there was a little 2 million pills seized in Arizona. Last year, there was 111 million fentanyl pills seized in Arizona.
Wow.
You wonder where the epidemic's coming from? It's our cartels who have been allowed to commit these crimes. And I'll say this, thanks to 51% of Congress, we have cut our DEA budgets in this country. We have less DEA agents in Arizona than we ever had before, and we lead the nation with fentanyl. I will say this, here's the community touch, our neighbors. These mountains right behind me here, we had a Border Patrol agent attacked early in the morning by 2 migrants, came across the border illegally, tried to cut his throat. Months later, had a deputy tried to interdict a smuggler at 100 miles an hour who met Mr. Trump, President Trump this morning, almost killed. We called the chaplain because we thought he was leaving us. The impact we saw on that. The river behind you, we had the cartels trying to kidnap my deputies, my border team, to torture them. We had the cartel come across the border early mornings to kidnap and kill one of my deputies because they're allowed to think that way. They're allowed to think that way. My deputies, troopers, agents, and officers.
He makes it sound like Kamala is the president. Border Patrol supported the bipartisan border bill in the Senate. Yeah, of course, with Trump being there, they're going to do the whole border czar thing and throw her under the bus, obviously, because he wants to get elected.
Officers in this county have endured more harm by the hands of the cartels, and no one is addressing them except local law enforcement and our agents and our troopers. I will say this as I close out. America's sheriffs have stood strong on the voice to secure our borders. We have tried everything to meet with President Biden and Vice President Harris, the border czar.
See?
They are the first. This is the first president administration in modern day that has never met with one America's sheriff to address border.
And J.D. Vance just came out, I don't know, an hour ago and said that they didn't support that bipartisan border bill because there were other things thrown into it that they did not agree with.
That's a shame. And you wonder why we don't have engagement, prioritization, and that's why we're suffering this country. When President Trump was president, I was at the White House more than you can think of. He was always there for us. I can assure you, Mr. President, this community and our law enforcement professionals will never give up hope. To us, hope is confidence, hope is commitment, hope is courage, and your visit today renews our hope here. Thank you, Mr. President, for being here.
All right. Is he next? All right, there you go. Bringing out Trump.
So thank you very much, everybody. It's very sad time for this country in many ways. You had a candidate. I was no fan of Joe Biden, but the way he was taken out was a coup. He got 14 million votes, and the person running now got none. She was disgraced. She was figured out by the Democrat voters. She never made it to Iowa. She was the first one out of approximately 22 people that were running for the Democrat nomination. She never even made it to Iowa. Beautiful place, Iowa.
Okay.
She didn't. Plenty of people did. And Biden got 14 million votes. She got no votes, and now she's running against us. The good news is I think we're winning in the polls based on what I'm seeing. And after the debate, we were...
I looked at those polls yesterday, and most of them are showing that he is not winning. I don't know why he keeps saying that. He said that yesterday, too, when I looked it up. He's not. He's winning in a few. I think Fox News had him in the lead yesterday when I was looking at it. There was a few others, but the majority of the polls are showing that Kamala is still in the lead.
Winning by...
It's not a coup. She's popular. They pretty much have a conspiracy that Biden was forced to step down. He didn't actually want to step down. I know they're trying to paint the image that he's stepping down because he wants the next generation to be in power and he's passing the torch and all this blah, 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 blah. But the picture that they're trying to paint is that he was pretty much forced.
Many points, as you know, against Biden. They went in to see him. They said, you're losing. You're not going to win. You can't win. We're going to get you out. It was a coup of an American president. And it was done with anger, and he's more angry than anybody. And again, I'm no fan of his...
Lying is his MO. Yeah, they're both a bunch of liars.
I think he was...
Politicians.
Perhaps the worst president. He was the worst president, largely because of what's happened at the border. He's allowed, in my opinion, and in the opinion of the gentleman behind me who know this better than anybody, much more than 20 million people into our country. Many from prisons and jails, many from mental institutions, insane asylums, and many terrorists. And this was, when I left, this is a very famous chart now because this chart probably saved my life. But this chart is showing, the arrow on the bottom shows that this was the lowest, this was the last week in office for me because of a horrible, horrible election where I got many millions more votes than I got the first time, but didn't quite make it, just a little bit short. We've got to clean up our borders, we have to clean up our elections, or we're not going to have a country. But that's my last week. The arrow on the bottom, you see, that's the lowest point.
We can't see that.
We're talking.
The sun's in the way.
That's the lowest point in the recorded history of the border. This was done by Border Patrol. This wasn't done by Trump. This was done by Border Patrol, working with ICE and law enforcement. And that's what we're going to do. Again, if you take a look, interestingly, at all of the wall that's laying on its side, that could have been put up in a matter of weeks. It was all set to go. It was all cut out. And if you look at the top of the mountain behind us, it was all shaped, all ready to go. Could have been put up in a few weeks. Much of it's been sold for 5 cents on the dollar. It's very expensive. I worked with Border Patrol very closely. We worked, Brandon, we worked with all of you people. And we wanted to design something that worked. And we actually had mountain climbers. We even had drug climbers. They call them drug climbers. They can get over a wall so incredible with 75 pounds of drugs on their back. They can climb up things. And we designed this after looking at a lot of different designs. And that's an anti-climb panel that makes it very tough for somebody to climb. This was the one that they wanted. A little more expensive version, but this is the one that's a very important panel on top. And it's called anti-climb. And this was put in.
He's beyond the typical political skews, in my opinion. His lying is pathological. I don't know, man. I think they're both liars, pretty much. I mean, that's all there is to it. They're both a bunch of liars.
Here just to shade us because there's a lot of rough people on the other side. So I figured you're the media, you want to be shaded. This gets taken off. This is just temporary to shade us from potential hazard. We know about hazards. But all of this wall was built at great expense, and all it had
Let me make sure this is
erected.
the best feed.
He stood up on its end, concrete on the bottom, goes down 6 feet.
Yeah.
It also went down and shielded from tunnels because we went down about as far as it's practical for them to go down. You know, they built tunnels on the walls. We went down pretty deep. We'd go down a lot deeper than the wall.
I would have thought that they would have set their cameras up against or put the podium more towards the wall to have shade. Instead, their cameras are like focused in the sun. That seems stupid.
Made it very tough for them. And we stopped that, and we stopped people from coming over. But when they refused to, I built hundreds of miles of this. By the way, as far as the eye can see, you look at the other direction, as far as the eye could see, and then I'd hear people say, oh, he didn't build the wall. We built the wall. We built much more than I was anticipated to build. And we were going to build an extra 200 miles. Much of this is that, which is much more than I said I was going to do, because as we built it, they would go around the edges. So we were going further and further out, and it worked. We had the best numbers ever, and we had them largely because of the wall, and also because the Mexican military helped us, which they never helped at any time. They never helped. And we were very proud of it. So we went from the best numbers in recorded history to the worst numbers in recorded history or any other history. And we have a Marxist that's running, and I don't think you can let her. This country is not ready for a Marxist president. She will never build the wall. She doesn't want to build the wall. She's only saying if she changes her mind, it's only because she wants to get elected, because who wouldn't want to have a strong border? You need strong borders and strong elections, and we have neither. But we're going to have very strong borders, and we're going to have very strong elections soon. The people is fed up. It's common sense. The people are just fed up. And you saw it. Everybody coming from the airport saw the thousands and thousands of people lined up. It looked like Lindbergh coming in from what he did at the time. Broadway, it was amazing when you see all those people it's a long drive from the airport, and so many thousands and thousands of people. The people in my car said, I've never seen anything like that. We're in the middle of an area that's not well populated, and to have thousands of people like that is pretty unbelievable. I hope you got to see it. And I hope the press rates this story fairly, because it's a story of disgrace. We had a border czar who was...
Is he going to take questions?
The border czar, she loved the title, but she didn't want to do the work because she's lazy, and probably more importantly than being lazy, she wants to have an open border. And you say, who would want an open border where criminals can pour into our country? And all you have to do is walk up there, if you have the courage to do it, and go to that open section. Stand there for a little while. You'll be running back here very quickly. You really have to write this fairly, this story. Because you people don't want to talk about the border. You don't want to talk about the bad things that are going on in our country. We're going to end up not having a country. You're not going to have any media. We don't have media. They don't have media. They do their own media. They don't need media. But you really should cover this story fairly. Before I begin, I have some, I think, very
What is he
good
talking
words on the
about?
border and what to
Problem is they made roads through places that would otherwise be much harder to pass.
do and how to solve the problem. We had it solved. All they had to do is leave it.
Leave it.
Leave it. Just leave it. But before I begin, I want to address the fake job numbers on top of everything else, fellas. Fake jobs. The fake job numbers that the Harris-Biden administration has been reporting for the last year. Thanks to a leaker yesterday, meaning probably in this case a patriot, they were forced to release numbers. They claimed falsely that they created 818,000 jobs. So they said they did almost 1 million jobs. 818,000 jobs that actually didn't exist. They were phantom jobs. They're called phantom jobs. The reason they did that is because I was even a little surprised their job numbers look better, because I know the economy's lousy. Everyone here knows it. It's lousy. These people behind me know it's lousy. We have the worst inflation, I believe, in the history of our country. And that's absolutely killing people. But it's 818,000 jobs, almost a million. And these are just the jobs we found out about. There's a lot of other false things that now are being looked at. That number will increase. So they reported false numbers.
I'm trying to find what he's talking about. He actually brought this up yesterday, and I couldn't find it yesterday. I did find the employment numbers that the FBI posted, but he tried to say that they were taking out major cities when they reported the employment numbers. And it was kind of true the way they did it. They were switching their formula on how they reported employment, and some of the major cities did opt out of the data points. So it was a little bit sketchy. I guess kind of what he's saying is true. He sure can't stay on topic. I don't fully understand the job thing, but his jobs had to be adjusted to. Yeah, so they basically what happened is they had a set formula how they reported jobs, and then they switched it over to a different one, and major cities weren't kind of on board with it to report those numbers, so it made it look like the unemployment rate was actually going down, and it was down under Biden, where it was kind of like not really going down. It was just the way that they reported the numbers. So that's pretty much what he's going with here.
And this isn't a revision. There's never been anything like this. This is a fraud put out by Harris and by Biden. And they were going to release the real numbers. It's called a revision after the election. But it got found out before the election. And I hope you're going to write about it. But it's a big story. And it's a story that's going to be going very far. People are very upset about it.
And this was yesterday, and most media companies are not reporting on this. They don't care.
Government officials are very upset about it. Even people that are Democrats are because it's a pure fraud.
It was hard for me to even find out what he was talking about.
Revision, you have a few jobs one way or the other, and they get it straight at the end of the month. But this one was sheltered for a long time, and they wanted to release it after November 5th. I wonder why, when it didn't really matter too much. But even then it mattered. But so I hope you're going to report it. Almost 1 million jobs were phantom jobs. They were fake jobs, just like a lot of reporting is fake. And I hope you're going to report it because people have to hear it. They didn't want these numbers to come out, and they did come out, and I really, the whistleblower or whoever it was that got them to have to do it. Somebody today, a high official said, well, we don't really believe those numbers because Trump gave them. I didn't give them. I got them from the administration, from the Labor Bureau, and these are the stats that were just let out. In fact, officially, I mean, they just came out. They were released in, officially released. Those are official numbers. Has nothing.
He said they just came out, and yeah.
I just happen to be playing the role of a reporter for a change.
Loser.
But I hope you're going to do something with it because I think it's a serious thing. But it's the same as everything else. And I'm so glad that we decided to do this. It's a little dangerous to do. I hate to tell you, you guys are in danger with the kind of weaponry that we have, but I felt it was important to do. And this kind of stuff that they put up to shield us, I'm going to make you feel not so good. It doesn't mean a thing compared to what comes through there, but at least they can't see you. But it's dangerous territory, and these people have unbelievable courage. The Border Patrol, ICE, the police, local law enforcement, unbelievable. I don't even know how they do it. They talk about, I was courageous. These people are courageous. They go through this every day. And the amount of horrible injuries sustained in fights and shootings are just incredible. Not reported, but incredible. We're here today on the southern border in Arizona where Comrade Kamala Harris, I call her comrade because she is a radical left Marxist. She wants open borders. She wants our country. I don't understand why anybody would want it, but she wants our country to be open to the world's criminals so they can come in and rape and pillage and do whatever they have to do. But she's the most radical left person who has ever run for high political office in our country's history. And by the way, the governor who's done a poor job as governor, Minnesota, Walz. He's done a poor job, very poor job. His numbers are horrible. People are fleeing his state. I love his state. We should have won his state twice, but a lot of hanky-panky goes on there. Hasn't been won since 1972.
Hanky-panky.
Richard Nixon was the last one to win it. But every time I go in there, we have massive crowds and everything's good, but nobody seems to be able to win it. So I know why we didn't win it. People don't like to talk about it. But he's a horrible governor. Has bad job numbers, bad numbers for leaving, a lot of people leaving the state. And he's insisted, he put a bill. I'm sure the sheriffs would be very happy when they hear this. He signed a bill fairly recently where boys' bathrooms have to have tampons in boys' bathrooms. I don't even like to bring the subject up, but it's a subject you have to hear about. That's what he wants. He's a radical left guy who lied like hell last night, and she'll lie tonight. We're doing a review of her tonight on Truth because
Really?
she'll lie just like the rest of them lied. They talked about what I said about soldiers. I never said anything.
That could be fun. If he is doing tweets on Truth Social while she's giving her speech, that'd be fun to actually stream. To go back and forth and see what they're saying against each other. Almost like a debate. One-sided debate, but, you know, that could be fun.
Of our soldiers. They made the story up. It was fiction. We had 26 people countering it, but nobody cares. They made up everything, so many different stories. They made up about Project 25. They've been told officially, legally, in every way that we have nothing to do with Project 25. They know it, but they bring it up anyway. They bring up every single thing that you can bring up. Every one of them was false. He brought them up. But they've unleashed a deadly plague of migrant crime on our country by not doing their job. And all of that plank and all of that very expensive wall, it's also got tremendous electronic capability inside of it. It's got wires for cameras and everything else that you can have. It's the Rolls-Royce of walls, I can tell you. It's very hardened steel outside, 7,000-pound concrete inside, and rebar inside of the concrete. All different, all very hard to get through. And it's sad to see it sitting here. We have crime going on up the road. In this direction, it's as far as you can see is wall. We have no problem there, but they come in where they refuse to put it up. That was when I first realized that they want open borders. I thought nobody could be so foolish or stupid to want open borders and have the world's population, the world's criminal population pour into our country. That's what's happening. But it shattered so many families' lives and stolen so many incredible young lives. And it's also really badly hurt our black population and our Hispanic population because these people are taking their jobs. The jobs now are down, way down for the black population and the Hispanic population because we have millions of illegal aliens that have poured into our country. They've taken the jobs of African Americans and Hispanics. And that was obvious to me. Next is going to be unions. You watch. The unions are going to start going well because those jobs are going to be taken too. We're honored to really be here with these incredible people and in particular with some grieving families. And this is a group of people that I've gotten to know. They're incredible people. They've lost a loved one, and thousands of others are out there, and they are grieving also. But they're not out with you and sitting in this hot sun. I will say this, that at least it gives us a good reason. We're doing something for those incredible people that we'll be talking about very shortly because we can't let it happen to other people. We can't let what you're going through happen to other families. And you know what you're going through, as we discussed.
Why has he been somber and monotone lately? I've noticed that too. And it's not a good look because it just makes him seem old. And especially as Democrats are throwing at him that now he's the old candidate, it's not a good look. He needs some caffeine, cocaine, I don't know, something.
Nobody's ever seen anything like it. All for no reason whatsoever. And these are hardened hardened criminals pouring into our country. And then they always say, Sheriff, oh, the illegal immigrants don't commit crimes like people that live here. It's so wrong. They don't report them, but it's so wrong. They make our criminals look like babies. They make our criminals look like babies. That's about the only thing good. Our criminals all of a sudden don't look so tough to us, right? These are the roughest people. And they're the roughest people from all over the world. Their jails are being emptied from all over the world. Their criminals are being taken from their cities. And by the way, their crime rates are way down. Their crime rates came way down. Venezuela, all of these countries, their crime rates are down. Their prison population's down. Soon they won't have any prison population because 100% of it will be in our country. With the statement, if you ever come back, we will kill you. That's the statement they tell them. If you ever come back to Venezuela and other countries, we will kill you. But it's all over the world. The Congo in Africa. Many prisoners let go from the Congo in Africa. Rough prisoners. All over Europe they come, from all over. Rough sections, the jails. You have to see jail populations are way down. So we've done a lot of trips to the border over the years and told a lot of stories about border victims, including the stories of the amazing angel moms who have never been appreciated.
He's starting to come
Incredible
alive.
Women, what they've gone through. They're going through a similar thing. And many of them, I asked about time, but this time, because many of them, this took place a long time ago with borders and horrible people coming in. And I don't have to tell you about the crimes, but the level of viciousness of the crime was unbelievable. But they said time doesn't heal. You know, the expression time heals all wounds. It doesn't. I spoke to some people, they say they're worse now than they were 15 years ago. And this started largely during Obama. And then we stopped it. We had it stopped. And then the first day in, they just said, we're not doing anything. We're not doing anything. All they had to do is let our people that we had in place, the best people. I was listening to people like Tom Homan, who is, just an incredible patriot, tough, smart, gets it, good man, but he's tough. I've been listening to all these people. They've been friends of mine for a long time. They know it better than anybody. But the level of criminality is unbelievable. It's an onslaught of violence at a level that nobody's ever seen before. For nearly 4 years, as border czar, Comrade Kamala has overseen a nation-wrecking border invasion. This is nation-wrecking. This isn't just like, we're going to fix it a little bit later. Gets to a point where you can't fix it. She's allowed at least 20 million people, all illegal aliens, into our country, including millions and millions of unvetted fighting-age men from over 158 different countries. 150. Most people didn't realize you had that many countries, right? Just recently, Kamala let in the head of a Peruvian gang who was wanted for 23 murders. Welcome to the United States of America. On her orders, Border Patrol is being forced to free tens of thousands of illegal aliens from custody week after week after week. And these are very violent criminals, too. These are the most violent criminals that you'll ever see. Every day brings another story about innocent Americans being tortured, raped, murdered, and massacred by illegal aliens that Kamala Harris has set free in our country. Don't hold them, they're told. Don't hold them, let them free. They'll behave. Well, he killed 20 people. Oh, but over here it's different. Since Comrade Harris took over the border, there has been a 43% nationwide increase in violent crime and a 60% increase in rape. And the FBI should be ashamed of themselves when they report numbers, because in order to keep the violence numbers down, they didn't report some of the worst cities in the country, like Chicago and others.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
What a disgrace. The FBI did that.
I found that yesterday.
In New York this June, an illegal alien released into our country by Kamala approached two 13-year-old children with a machete in broad daylight in front of other people, forced them into the woods, tied them together by the wrist, and raped them over and over again. Over and over again. 2 Kamala migrants were just arrested for the rape of a 46-year-old woman In Coney Island, I know Coney Island very well. That's where I sort of started. My office was out there. Brooklyn, throwing her to the ground and raping her with a knife to her throat. One of them had previously been arrested for raping another woman, but instead of being deported, he was released into our country and told to enjoy your life. In Fort Wayne, Indiana, a woman who was offered a ride home by 2 illegal aliens was instead kidnapped, held down and raped, then driven around while the illegals discussed how they planned to kill her. They wanted to kill her. They didn't want to have a witness. And she miraculously escaped by throwing herself out of a rapidly moving car, was badly hurt, but she escaped, at least. Those people came from another country, and they were very violent with an unbelievably violent background. Violence like you've never seen. In the Bronx recently, an illegal alien who Kamala set loose into the country approached a 36-year-old woman while pretending to ask for directions before he wrapped his arms around her throat, pinned her down on a park bench, and raped her publicly on a park bench. And she said, he wasn't trying to rape me, he was trying to kill me. In Michigan earlier this year, an illegal alien broke into a residence and sexually assaulted 2 young girls, doing tremendous damage to these 2 young, beautiful girls. In Virginia, a few weeks ago, a 54-year-old mother of 4 was leaving a convenience store when she noticed an illegal alien trying to steal her car. When she tried to stop him, he ran her down, ran her over, and left her dead on the ground. She was dead, and her family is devastated. In Texas last month, a Venezuelan illegal alien criminal let in by Comrade Kamala shot a female police officer multiple times with a rifle. And she'll never be the same. And that's being nice about it. A few months ago, I met with the devastated family of Laken Riley, a 22-year-old nursing student who was out for a jog on the campus of the University of Georgia when she was assaulted, beaten, and horrifically murdered. Kamala Harris let in the illegal alien animal who murdered Laken. This monster was in Border Patrol custody, under very strong custody. They didn't want to let him go. But under Kamala's policies, he was set free to kill, and that's what he did. Kamala let this bloodthirsty killer go free, and then he murdered beautiful Laken, #1 in her class, nursing school. Everybody aspired to be like her. She was the best student, the best everything. Beautiful girl.
All right, I'm depressed now.
Then there's the heartbreaking story of Rachel Morin. And we're joined today by Patty and Michael Morin, Rachel's mother and brother. And I met with them. We had lunch. And they're devastated at a level that nobody can really imagine. Rachel was a cherished 37-year-old mom, beautiful woman of 5 incredible children who adored their mother more than anything in the world. They loved their mom. Earlier this year, while Rachel was out on a run, she wants to keep herself in good shape, and she ends up getting killed. In her neighborhood, she was brutally raped and murdered by an illegal alien who was led into America by Kamala Harris and her policies of stupidity. Savage.
Okay.
Person
Stupidity.
who committed this heinous crime first killed another woman in El Salvador before walking across our open border. Just walked right in. They didn't have this then. He then attacked a 9-year-old girl and her mother in a home invasion in Los Angeles where they were very badly hurt before murdering Rachel. And the area where Rachel lived in a very different part of this country. It was cold-blooded murder. Patty and Michael, I would just, first of all, thank you for being here. I know it's tough, but they want to let people understand what's going on here because this can't happen to other parents and sisters and brothers and husbands. So if you would, I'd love you to say a few words. Thank you.
There we go. I'll hear what they have to say.
I was just thanking President Trump for the invitation to come and to share Rachel's story. Rachel was 37 years old. She had 5 children. She worked. She owned a small business. She worked very hard to support her family. And the trail that Rachel ran daily was a trail that we as a family would walk over the last 25 years that we've lived in Maryland. It's a very safe, small trail, very public, very open. Moms with baby carriages go down this trail. It's very safe. I was in Kentucky. We had a grandbaby that had passed away. When I got a phone call from my son, and he said, "Mom, there's somebody here that would like to speak to you." And when I said hello, the person on the other end said, "Hello, Mrs. Morin. This is Detective so-and-so. I'm the lead detective on this case. There's no easy way to tell you this, but we found your daughter's body. And if they find the body, you know that she's dead. They wouldn't say, 'We found Rachel, she's alive.'" And so they found my daughter's body, and when they found it, just recently it has come out that she was brutally beaten, raped, and then stuffed into a drain pipe. We're 18,000 miles, 1,800 miles from the border. And because of this open border, we've had not just my daughter, but we've actually had 2 in the same county that we're from, where illegal immigrants have come in and have caused rape and murder of our citizens. And the reason why I came here today and I accepted the invitation is because I really want our words to be heard, and I really want you to take to heart what we're saying. We're not here for a political stand, although we are. We're here because we're losing our moms, our daughters, our children to criminals. And that shouldn't happen. We should be taking care of our country, our people. And the only way I believe that's going to happen is if President Trump is reelected as president. And we close up this border and we put policies back into place that were there before, instead of this open border thing. We're gonna end up being a third world country if it continues this way. And I truly hope that you would just take my words to heart, because it's devastating to lose a child, but even more devastating when you see the pictures or you see the body and you really understand what's happened to that person. So please take to heart, this is a very, very important issue. And it's one that's either going to make or break our country. It's not so much, it's about America, it's about Americans, it's about us taking and protecting ourselves and looking out for each other. It's about protecting our families. So, thank you. Thank you.
Well, this was a lot more sad than I thought it was going to be. This is a bummer. Jesus Christ.
Thank you very much. Boy, there's story after story like that. Also with us is Alexis Nungari and Hoamel Guevara, the loving mother and uncle of precious Angel Jocelyn Nungari. Jocelyn was a 12-year-old girl from Houston whose life was stolen by 2 criminal illegals that Harris freed into our country for no reason whatsoever. They were known as monsters. 2 months ago, after walking to the convenience store, these criminal migrants kidnapped Jocelyn, tied her up for 2 hours, violently assaulted her, and strangled her violently to death. Charged with Jocelyn's wicked murder are 2 illegal aliens from Venezuela who came across our border. Just walked across like there was nothing to it. Couldn't do that 5 years ago, 4 years ago. They were in Border Patrol custody. They were gotten, they were nabbed, and were then released into our country. Alexis, we cannot fathom your pain. There are so many people that are going through this pain. But we pledge to always hold Jocelyn in our hearts. And Alexis, I'd like to have you maybe come up and say a few words. Thank you very much.
So I would love to thank Donald Trump for giving us this invitation to be here and to say a few words to the staff that's been so kind to help us in this very hard time. My daughter was just 12. She had dreams to be famous. She wanted to be a famous actor. She was so funny. She was her own personality. And it's been very hard. It's been very hard. June 17th was the day her life was taken. She was left with no clothing from the waist down, was thrown in a bayou, left.
My God.
Was strangled to death.
Jesus.
I believe, yes, she was assaulted off of DNA kit that has been, but it's still very, very early, and it's still very, very raw, and it's still very, very surreal. And they had no reason to do anything that they did to Jocelyn. There was over 300 detention beds that they should have been at because they were detained and they were released when they shouldn't have been released. One had an ankle monitor, didn't stop anything. So now I have to go through the rest of my life with my son, always asking for his sister. And I just really, really, really want everybody to please take into consideration how important border control is, because we're losing very innocent people to heinous crimes that shouldn't be happening in the first place. So please, please, I really hope everybody can hear my pain, to just please, please, he needs to be in office, and we need better control. We need to stop this. We need to stop losing our littles. We need to start losing children, mothers, sisters, because now I get to grieve every single day. Every milestone that hits gets harder because she's not there for it. She was gonna be a 7th grader. She had her whole life ahead of her. And it was viciously taken away by 2 evil, evil, heinous monsters. So thank you again for taking the time to listen to my words. And please, help him make a change. Thank you.
Sad stories, but I don't believe 45 has any real empathy for these folks. You must think he is a real asshole.
So Jocelyn is in heaven now, looking down on us right now. And in her name and her memory, we'll be fighting to protect every American daughter and child. That's why we're here, because this will happen and has happened by the thousands. There are thousands of people that are in horrible situations like this. As Kamala gives her convention speech tonight, she will not mention the victims. She won't even talk about them, although now that she sees us, maybe she will.
Probably not.
She'll not say their names or express remorse to their families. Kamala says she wants to talk about the future. No, these people want to go back to the safe past. We don't have a future with open borders and all of the other problems this country has. The crime problem.
I think he's a sociopath.
Just like they rigged the 818,000 jobs number, they rigged the crime numbers too. That's also been a proven fact, just came out. But she's stolen the future of Lake and Riley and Rachel and our precious Jocelyn. Just taking their lives away for no reason. When I left office, I gave Kamala Harris the strongest and most secure border in American history. These people have done an incredible job. They worked with lots of others. And if you came here illegally, you got caught. And you were deported or put in jail, depending on what. In some cases, we put them in jail because we didn't want, they were so violent, we didn't want to take a chance that they'd come back. But generally, they were deported and brought into countries that wouldn't accept them before me. With me, they accepted them. They wouldn't take them back, but with me, they accepted them. I said, you're going to have a lot of problems if you don't. We ended catch and release. We had remain in Mexico. The greatest policy, remain in Mexico. How good was that? Everybody remained in Mexico until they were checked out, and either they came in or not. Most of them didn't qualify. Title 42, Safe Third agreements, and 500 miles of border wall that was very, very difficult to even think about getting over, around, or under. The final gaps of the wall were about to be sealed. Then Kamala came in and dismantled every single Trump border policy and halted all wall construction. And there it sits, but much of it's been sold. This is just a small example of what it was, what it is before they lift it up. So you can see on the ground behind me the sections of wall that taxpayers paid for, a lot of money. But Kamala refused to put up, just refused. She wouldn't do it. Everybody called. I even made some calls. I said, you got to put it up. You got to put it up. But she didn't want it open. She wanted a wide open border. What Biden and Kamala have done to the families here with me and so many others, thousands and thousands of others, not only killed, also really badly hurt to a point where they'll never lead a normal life again. It's shameful and it's evil. Every year under Harris, a new all-time record of illegal immigration has been set. Every single year, our great borders are. She'll blow away Biden's reputation as being.
Title 42 couldn't legally stay in place. I'm not even sure what that is, to be honest. This is a play out of the left playbook. I can see why he did it. Yeah, exactly. Because last night they had all the people who couldn't get an abortion and all of that. So they're fighting emotion with emotion. And after watching both of their speeches, I'm just depressed. I'm just depressed now. Like, this shit is awful. Let me see what Title 42 is.
The worst president. She'll be a president that'll make him look good, just like Biden made Jimmy Carter look good. To get illegals into America as fast as possible, Harris has flown hundreds of thousands by airplane. Then they say, oh, well, we didn't want them to go. But then we found out a few months ago that
Title 42 expulsion is the removal by the U.S. government of a person who had recently been in a country where a communicable disease was present. The extent of authority for contagion-related expulsion is set out by law in 42 USC. Okay.
that they're flying him in over the border by airplanes to all over our country. Well, that means they do want them to come in and flying in some very dangerous people. It's close to 1 million people, we think. Close to 1 million people were flown in over the border, and she's trying to say, well,
because of COVID? Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Borders. She just started this a short while ago. She's even launched a smartphone program that gives fast pass entry to thousands of illegal immigrants, all coming very quickly. You use the smart pass and you get immediate access into our country. Can you believe this? And then they're trying to say we believe in borders. They're flying right over our heads, right into the middle states. all over. Every border, and you've heard this, every border, you look at the different states and put another way, every state is the border state now when you think about it, because they just come right past here and they get taken to other states that never even thought of a problem like this. And those are not happy campers. According to a new DHS report, Kamala Harris also lost more than 300,000 migrant children that she allowed to be trafficked into our country. These children are gone. Many of them are dead. And nobody does anything about it. 300,000 children are missing. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if that were a Trump administration? Be the biggest story in history. Nobody even talks about it, just like they don't talk about the fact that Joe Biden got $27 million from different countries. And they don't talk about that, him and his family. Just came out from Congress. Nobody talks about it. I do have some good news, though, for the people standing behind me in particular, and maybe for some of the press that wants to hear good things. The Supreme Court just ruled that you're not allowed to have illegal aliens vote. Just came out just before I walked up. So illegal aliens are officially not allowed to vote in our country.
Why would they even need a ruling for
Credit
that?
to the Supreme Court. They have great courage in doing what they're doing. It's not easy, but that was one that everybody was hoping for. You know, a vast majority of people agree with that. It's a very small amount of people that don't. Who would want that? So thank you very much. And she's really provided Harris deportation immunity to the vast majority of criminal aliens living inside the United States. They've got immunity. They really have immunity. And importing MS-13 directly into our cities. MS-13 is the most vicious gang we feel. If I ask the sheriffs behind me, I think
Says Attorney General Ken Paxton and 23 other states asked SCOTUS to allow Arizona law requiring proof of citizenship for voting to go into effect.
probably considered the most vicious gangs in the world, wouldn't you say, Brandon? It's never seen anything like it. It's not even believable. I won't tell you about it. It's not even believable. As the DA of San Francisco, Kamala Harris was the godmother of deadly sanctuary cities. She was considered the godmother. All they're doing is protecting criminals, which set loose illegal alien criminals rather than hand them over to ICE, who are doing an incredible job. Under a program Kamala set up, an illegal alien arrested on drug charges in 2008 was set free to enjoy job training. A short time later, that same illegal alien attacked a 29-year-old beautiful young woman, Amanda Kiefer, stealing her purse and fracturing Amanda's skull. It was vicious and horrible, and Amanda's here with us, and I'd love to have Amanda come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Yeah, more people coming here to depress me.
I'm Amanda Kiefer.
Hello. What's going on, man?
Like I belong on the stage with the folks here since I seem to have gotten off kind of easy with just a fractured skull. I didn't lose loved ones, but the night I was walking to dinner in Pacific Heights.
I'm neither, really. Glad to see someone actually is coming from Twitch for once. I never get anybody on Twitch for some reason.
It was a nice neighborhood. You wouldn't expect broad daylight for something violent to happen to you on the way to dinner. My purse was stolen, and I stepped into the street, and the car I jumped into came at me. I jumped up on the hood to avoid getting run over, and he floored it, hit the brakes. The police were great. They had caught him and his accomplice in a really short time, because I remember being on a gurney in the hallway of the hospital, and I had to ID them. They were laughing as they fractured my skull.
Jesus, these people are depressing me. Who would you want to win? I'm leaning more towards Trump. But if Kamala came out with some great policies, I'm sure she could change my mind, maybe. What is your Twitch stream? Is it better than YouTube? It's Sweep the Legs with 2 S's. I'm pretty sure Twitch only does 720p, so probably not as good as YouTube. Plus the bitrate on YouTube is higher, so it's a better quality. I live in WA. All of our voting is by mail. That's crazy to think. Hey, Chadwin Park, I see you through the screen. What? Okay. Yeah, I'm multi-streaming the chat in here so you guys can communicate with each other, even if you're on Twitch or YouTube.
What was really the worst part about it all, though, is when I found out that taxpayer money was paying for job training for this guy who avoided going to prison for the first felony he committed for jobs he couldn't legally hold. It was kind of a wake-up moment for me.
Jesus.
And I moved out of San Francisco because I didn't feel safe here.
So depressing.
And I don't think our country is going to be safe under Kamala Harris.
Story after story. Kamala has called for the abolishing of ICE, the closing of every ICE detention facility, and the...
He's saying he sees you in the chat box because I have YouTube and Twitch on there. Because, you know, if you're watching just from YouTube and you're looking at the YouTube chat box, you can't just see people from Twitch.
Releasing of some of the most vicious criminals anywhere in the world by doing so. She supports free health care for illegal immigrants and has promised to give illegals mass amnesty and citizenship, which will obliterate Social Security. Oh, Social Security is going to be obliterated by all of these millions of people that she wants to put on. And also Medicare will be obliterated. I'm going to save Social Security.
No, he sees you. He's watching you in your house.
Not going to touch it. We're going to make our country strong, but they're going to obliterate it. She also feels extremely strongly about defund the police. She wants to defund the police. And anytime somebody wants to defund the police, you're never going to get them back to being normal. The police have to be taken care of. They're the best thing we have going to protect us. They know exactly what's going on. When we do deportation, they know every person out there, and they know the middle name, and they know...
He didn't platform victims when he was president. I don't know about that. The elections became so weird. Trump is presented as a guy with aura, and Kamala became obsessed with black culture. Yeah, the DNC was nothing but black culture. Every person that they brought out on stage, they had to have first black person to eat a bowl of Cheerios on a Sunday morning through everyone that was out there. What's depressing? I've been in line at a fast food joint for 20 minutes. Yeah. I don't mind standing in line to vote. I'm okay with it. Ooh, thank you for the sub. With Trump versus Biden, it wasn't about fixing America or the world, but who's worse than the other. Yeah, exactly. Right now, I can't say like I'm for Trump either. I'm not in love with the guy. I lean towards Trump, probably from what I've seen so far. We're still far away from the actual election, so I don't know who I'm going to vote for, but both of them are pretty bad.
Know everything about them, and they know all of the bad ones. They know the really bad ones. It'll be a great help. We have to get the criminals out of our country immediately. Kamala is always going to have open borders. If Comrade Harris has the chance, she will allow more than 100 million illegal aliens into our country. Our country will be overrun, and essentially it won't be a country. It will be not governable. With us today are leaders of the National Border Patrol. You've known them, you've met them. I don't have to go over, but I want to just thank them for the incredible job they've done. I've worked so well with them. Paul Perez has been unbelievable. Past President Brandon Judd, unbelievable. Sheriff Mark Daniels has been incredible. I watched him on television today. He did a great job of explaining this crazy situation that we're in. Sheriff Chris Heiser. So I want to just say you're here, and Paul and Brandon, Mark, and everybody, I want to thank you so much. It's incredible the job you do. Such a dangerous job. I actually did. I came in, I met one of the Border Patrol who was badly wounded. I said, "Are you okay?" It was a while ago. He said, "Yes." I said, "What happened?" "Well, my leg is broken, my arm was broken, my back was broken, my neck was broken, my skull was fractured." He went through a list of things. I said, "That's unbelievable." When we win this November, we will end the Kamala Harris border nightmare once and for all. We'll get it back very strong. We will also end the inflation, a bad economy, and we will be respected very shortly all over the world again as we were by other countries. The choice is simple. Kamala's mass amnesty of criminals or President Trump's mass deportation of criminals. I think that's pretty easy. In addition to all of the other things, there are many other things that are equally as bad but not as obvious. With your vote, we will seal the border, stop the invasion, and launch the largest deportation effort in American history. We will impose...
Little John was at the DNC. I thought he was cool with Trump, especially after being on The Apprentice. You know they paid him. That's why he showed up. They gave him a huge check, just like the Obamas, and that's why he showed up.
Tough new sentences on illegal alien criminals. These include 10-year mandatory minimum sentence for anyone guilty of human smuggling, a guaranteed life sentence for anyone guilty of child trafficking, and a death penalty for anyone guilty of child or woman sex trafficking. We'll also impose the death penalty on major drug dealers and traffickers. In other countries, on their immigration papers, there is a statement that says, death for drug traffickers. Big letters, big bold letters. 10 times the size of everything else on the page. I saw it this morning. And those are the countries where they have no problem with drugs. Many of them, actually. We will also impose the death penalty for anyone killing our police, sheriffs, Border Patrol, ICE, or law enforcement officials. The death penalty with a quicker trial, not a trial that lasts for 15 years and everybody gets exhausted. We will liberate our country from the illegal alien drug dealers, robbers, murderers, gang members, and child predators. And we will make
That's my
America
Twitch
safe
name
again
right there,
for
if you wanted to look
our
at it.
citizens and make it greater, stronger, better, more.
Also, something else funny with Trump, he keeps saying, if I was there, it wouldn't have happened. It's the weirdest thing to say. Nobody knows. Yeah, obviously, that he doesn't know. But he wants people to vote for him, so he has to be the savior.
More beautiful than ever before. And I want to thank you all, and especially our 4 very special people. 4 very special people. And sheriffs and law enforcement, I want to thank you so much because this job is so dangerous. It's not even believable. You pull over a car, they open the door and they start shooting you. That happened in Long Island with a great young man with an incredible family. I went there. Same thing. So we have to stop it. We have to bring our country back. We have to use common sense. You don't have to be conservative or liberal or progressive, as they like to say now. They don't like the term liberal. Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. We have to have strong protection in our country, or our country's going to wither away and die. We need a military. We need our great police to be loved and respected, and they will be again. Right now, if somebody does something that's a little bit on the tough side to stop something that's very bad, they end up losing their pension, their life, their car, their house. They lose their job. They lose everything. We're going to give immunity to many, many people so that they can do the law. But again, I want to thank you. I want to thank the media for being here. I hope you can report the story the way it is. It's a very sad moment for our country.
Yeah, I'm depressed.
Some very bad people trying to get into office, and if we don't stop them, our country has no chance of greatness. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, you said that local law enforcement will be
Oh, he's going to take questions.
bad undocumented migrants.
Yeah.
How will your administration go about the mass deportation of illegal migrants across the
We'll work with locals, and they're going to bring them to us, and we'll get them over the border, and we'll make arrangements with the countries, and the countries will accept them back. And if they don't accept them back, we do no trade with those countries, and we charge them big tariffs.
Mr. President.
On the airing end of RFK Jr.'s campaign, did you talk to him in the last couple of days? Does he plan on endorsing?
I haven't, but I'm hearing reports. I have a lot of respect for RFK Jr., you know that. I've known him a long time. Very smart, a little bit different, and that's okay. But he's a very smart guy. He's loved by a lot of people, and I'm hearing that he wants to leave. Don't forget he was treated very unfairly. I think he would have beaten Biden in a primary, the Kennedy name and him in particular. I think he would have beaten Biden in a primary, and they made it impossible. They said you have to get 70% of the vote just to qualify or something. They created standards that nobody could have met. Biden couldn't have met them. And I think he would have lost Biden, and they really treated him very badly. Then he went out as an independent, and it's a tough thing to do, independent. You know, it wasn't set up that way, the country. It's really a two-party system, whether people like it or not, Republican, Democrat.
Yeah.
And I have spoken to him in the past, over the last number of months, but not recently. But there are rumors that he's going to make an endorsement. That would be a great honor for me.
Yeah, Chad, you're right. He's going to end up endorsing Trump. It's coming, if it hasn't already came today.
Great honor.
Mr. President, Mr. President.
Tomorrow at your rally outside of Phoenix?
I don't know. I can't say that. But I know we're in the same state, so we're not very far away. But I can't tell you that yet. No plans have been made at this point. Brian?
Yes, sir. As a parent, I'm hearing these stories. You're a parent yourself. What was going through your mind when you're hearing all these just horrible stories about losing your children?
What was going through my mind is that, and I almost hate to say it in front of them, I don't know how they take it.
Oh, my God.
How they can take it. You understand that? I think probably most of the people did. No. How do you take it? How do you do it? It's, it's like devastating when you see what happened. And these are incredible people. These people are incredible people. I got to know them. They're unbelievable, and they loved like.
I read somewhere he will endorse him on Friday. It's coming. It's definitely coming. He knows he's not going to win. He's not liked by the Democrats, obviously. So he is definitely going to endorse Trump.
As much as you can love someone, I spend time with all of them. And what goes through my mind is I don't know how the hell they take it. Yes.
When you talked about Edinburgh, Texas earlier, visiting them, it was a big deal for those small border communities. It's a big deal when you come here. Obviously, the border means a lot to you.
A lot.
Your campaign.
Always has.
So why not support that bipartisan border security bill? And how do you get people on board with all the things that you talked about, the policies that you just laid out? How do you get people to come to the table?
Ready?
Yeah.
The bipartisan, and it wasn't bipartisan, they had a couple of people on the other side.
This is for you, Paul. This is what you were just asking about.
It was weak, it was ineffective, and it would have allowed, as you know, millions and millions of people to pour through, and largely unvetted. It was a horrible bill, it was a weak bill, and they don't need a bill. All Biden had to do is look to the border and say, close the border. He didn't need a bill. He knows that. They didn't want a bill. The bill was terrible. If it was good, I would have approved it. The House passed a bill before that. I'd approve that bill right now. That was a real bill. But this bill was a weak bill, and it was a shame that they got a Republican. They got somebody who's a very good person, by the way, but they got him to lead it. But it didn't make any difference. If they wanted to close the border, which they don't. They'll have 100 million people come in and totally destroy, ruin our country. If they wanted to close the border, I didn't have a bill. I said, close the border. I said, Brandon, close that border, Brandon. And what happened? He closed the border. They all did. Paul, the whole group of them, this group is incredible. They closed the border. I looked at him, I said, we don't have a bill, we don't need a bill, close the damn border. They closed the border. They could do the same thing.
Trump better give him a candidate position. I don't know if he's going to do that with RFK. We'll have to see. Let's go, Brandon.
It's happening now, though. The encounter numbers are extremely low right now. So
No. Right now, what's happening is people are waiting to see what's going to go with the election. And wait till you see what happens after the election, one way or the other. But right now, you take a look at the numbers for the last year. They're horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And it's also election time, don't forget. They want to put on a little bit of a squeeze. All they do and all they want to do and all they have to do is say...
Closed due to COVID. Yeah, that's right.
Biden, although I'm not sure, you take a look at... Nobody even knows where he is. He's on a beach someplace. But he could even do it from the beach. Close the border. And the border is closed. They will close the border immediately. That's what I did. But we had great people. We've lost a lot of those great people because... they want to be respected, and they weren't respected because of this administration. And the worst person in, far worse than Biden, was Kamala. That's why I call her comrade, because she's a radical left person who really wants to have an open border. She'll never close the border. She'll never drill for oil and gas. She's not going to do it. She might do it for a couple of months. She stopped, and that's where the inflation came in. Then she went back to the Trump policy. What they don't say is that if I were there, I'd be now 4 times higher than I was at that moment. But the gasoline prices are still very high right now. But they would have been double if they didn't go back to the Trump policy of drilling. But we would have been close to 4 times higher. We would have been energy dominant. We were energy independent. They would have been energy dominant. But if I want the border closed, if I'm the president, I don't need a bill. I just have to say close the border, and they close the border.
Mr. President, if you get back to the White House, are you confident that you can reach a consensus with Democrats on how to fix the border?
Well, I think right
No.
now you look at it, and I'm one that believes
Nope.
that we want to unify our country.
Not gonna happen. If Trump gets elected, it's all out war with the Democrats. Let's not play games here.
But when you have an issue like this where some people, and I don't happen to believe it's the Democrats. I think it's Democrat leaders that want the open borders. I think it's Democrat leaders that say, we don't want voter ID. We talk about elections. I always start, okay, we start with voter ID. We don't want voter ID. He said, no, everything has ID, identification. They said, we don't want any identification. We don't want it. Now, there's only one reason, so we can't even negotiate after that, because they don't want voter ID. So I say to them, why don't you want? Well, we just don't want it. We think it's discriminatory. They have all sorts of excuses. They don't want it because they want to be able to cheat. And we want voter ID. And we want same-day voting. And we want paper ballots. And we want proof of citizenship. Very simple. France did it. France went to 38 million votes, and they did it because they had mail-in ballots, and they were very unsafe, very bad. They had tremendous problems, and they went 2 years ago with an election and worked out incredibly. 10 o'clock in the evening, they had 37 million votes. They were all counted, and there were no problems. That's where our country should go. But the Democrats don't want to go there because it doesn't allow them to.
I heard RFK tried to get a cabinet position for an endorsement with Kamala, and they didn't respond. That sounds about right. Whoever wins, either way, they're going to get billions and billions of dollars. Yeah, they're going to be loaded for the rest of their life.
To cheat. Okay, how about one more?
Mr. President, you have a lot of support from your policies.
Today there was a manhunt going on in this county. Somebody made death threats to you. Did you hear about that before coming?
No.
What are your thoughts coming down here? Some people told me it's dangerous for you to be here.
I've heard it's dangerous, but I also have a job to do. I heard it's very dangerous. I haven't heard about that. They probably want to keep it from me. Thank you for telling me. Let's get out of here right now. No, thank you very much for saying. But no, and I have great respect for Secret Service, the job they do, including a month and a half ago when they were jumping on top of me with bullets flying right at them. So mistakes were made, and they're going to learn from the mistakes. But I have great respect. But no, I haven't heard that, but I'm not that surprised. And the reason is because I want to do things that are very bad for the bad guys. So I have heard it's very unsafe to make this trip. There were some people that really didn't want me to make it. Yeah.
You have a lot of support.
Yeah, we'll work on that. They're missing so many children right now under this administration, over 300,000. Many of them are dead. You know that. Many of them are dead. Many of the hostages in Israel are dead. This is why Hamas isn't talking. Hamas doesn't want to negotiate very much because I think they probably don't have very many alive right now, and so they don't want.
How has nobody asked him about the ceasefire? It's like, I know we both didn't just make that up in our head. We both read it online this morning, and nobody's asking about that. They didn't ask about it in the Pentagon briefing, or JD Vance wasn't asked about it earlier, and they're not going to ask Trump about that. That was big news today. If Trump wins, what will be the first thing they try to impeach him with? They're going to keep trying to impeach him, I'm sure. Did he forget to put on sunscreen many places on his face? His orange and pink? I think that's just his face and a little bit of his spray tan.
Want to really get into too much of a negotiation because I think many of those hostages, unfortunately, are dead. But the 300,000 children that are missing, many of them are dead. And many of them are in sex rings and all sorts of things going on. It's a terrible thing. They have done such a bad job in this government in terms of everything, foreign relations.
Man, I got people actually watching on Twitch right now. I have 6 viewers. I usually have 0 viewers on Twitch. Appreciate you guys. Nothing will ever change. I as pessimistic as it sounds, I agree with you. I don't think it's really going to change much because political corruption is too dang profitable for shareholders. Exactly. Either one of them gets elected, probably nothing's going to happen. It's going to be business as usual.
Border, crime, jobs. And today you found out that the job numbers are fake on top of everything else. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
You have a lot of support for your policies here. Sheriff Daniels is someone that I've spoken with, I've interviewed before.
Yes.
He's very much in support of your policies. But when it comes to something like mass deportation, how would you work with blue states and blue cities that might not be as supportive as some of the folks here?
Let me tell you, they're much more supportive than you think. I've watched New York, Eric Adams. I've watched the body language. A lot of people that are in charge of that, they want to straighten it out. They can't live like this. New York has hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants in their midst. Many of them are very, very hardened criminals. And I've watched the mayors, I've watched governors talking, and it's almost like they're talking because they're demanded from Washington. They want it out much more than people would understand. They want them out. They don't want to see their cities overrun. New York is overrun, Chicago's overrun. They're all, and you would be surprised. And the people, including Democrats want to have a secure border. Democrats want to have a secure vote. It's the leadership.
I hope all is well from United Kingdom. I hope all is well with you from all of these crazy videos that I'm seeing of things going on in your country. Obviously, we have this going on in America, this crazy shit, but you guys as well.
Leadership that doesn't. So I think that'll be a very easy situation to solve. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Do you think the election this year will be secured, Mr. President?
I hope so.
Oh, there he is. And that's going to be it. I wish he would have took more questions. All right, I'm going to flip back, see what else is going on in the world. It's getting close to DNC time. I think they probably started at like 5:30. And these speeches, like their headliners, usually don't come out until like 11 p.m. The DNC is actually pretty late. I still can't believe we didn't have a White House press briefing today. That's weird. Like all week they didn't do a press brief. Yeah, it's the final day of the DNC. Kamala's going to do her speech tonight. And Trump just said he's going to live tweet as she does it on Truth Social. I don't know if he's going to do it actually on Twitter, but I'd be curious to see what he has to say as she's giving her speech. I'm also curious to see what Kamala has to say in her speech. There's a lot of people's live streaming outside of the DNC for the protests. I didn't hear about anything crazy happening yesterday, but the protests are still going on. I'm glad I'm on the West Coast. Too late for my old ass. Exactly. Yeah. It felt like they were going until like midnight. It's going to be 45 minutes of cackling. That's her speech, just cackling. I don't like her fake smile. She comes out and she has that typical like politician smile, like where she has to constantly have the smile on. She can't like just show different emotions. It's just smile, you know, smile, look pretty, wave at the crowd, you know, like I wish she'd be more real. Biden spoke for an hour and a half. At that late hour. Yeah, I watched Biden speak, actually. Can I ask you a question? Sure. Hit me. What's your question? What do you think actually controls America? Actually controls America? I don't know, money, power, the big wigs somewhere, the people behind the curtains. Biden speaks better now than when he was campaigning. Yeah, it's probably less pressure on him, I'm sure. Every time he came out, people were looking for any kind of slight slur or memory gap that he was going to make. This was pretty much like his final speech. This was a goodbye. He's already checked out. He's not running the country. He's just phoning in his last few months. So I think a lot of pressure is coming off of him. I think he could look out in the crowd and say, this is it. It's over. Career is done skis. And that probably has to be a little bit freeing. Well, I'm probably going to log off. I've been streaming for like over 3 hours now. If you guys enjoyed this, give me a subscribe. If you're on YouTube, on Twitch, give me a follower. I barely have any viewers on Twitch at all. I don't usually get a lot of viewers at all when it comes to Twitch. Right now I got 5, which is way more than I ever have on Twitch. So I definitely appreciate that. But yeah, that was a fun one. That's definitely a fun one today. So I might come back, do the DNC. I'm not sure. It just depends on how the wife is feeling. If I can get away after she gets off work. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, nice meeting you, Paul. Definitely subscribe, come back, hang out. We love your left ass. So we need some Democrats up in this chat too to have some counterpoints. And I appreciate that you're not one of the Democrats that are immediately out there calling people white supremacists or a Nazi or whatever. So definitely appreciate that. But yeah, I'll see y'all. Hopefully tomorrow they have a White House press brief. They usually don't have them on Fridays. They're probably not, but definitely Monday. Come back around and we'll hit up the White House press brief.